Here again. Is that you trying to do Jaws? It's not Jaws, you know.
I'll be like this. Morning, Simon, for me. Morning for me. Evening for you. Good evening. Yes, afternoon, whatever that is over there in the other part of the world. Yes, the round part of the world.
Show?
Well, it's all round, I think, actually. What am I talking about? No, there's flat earthers over here, so I'm never quite sure what
round,
our shape must be. Yeah, right. It's what is it? Oblate spheroid, I think is the
that's
phrase.
The one, yeah. That's the
yeah. I learned that somewhere, and it's just the most useless fact I know, I think. All right. So
it's useless. It's useless until you need to convert like
GPS to
GPS coordinates that are in a that are what they call. They use a square basically for the GPS coordinates instead of a rectangle, which means you then have to skew the results.
Oh, right. And so you got spherical geometry, but you also have to modify it by the oblate spheroid compensation.
Fun times.
Right.
All right.
Oh, man. That's so esoteric. Welcome to This Week in Esoterica.
Right.
Right. We got to say that carefully. Anyway.
I think let's get into the show. Right.
Yeah, we have a show. Let's do a show. Is that that's my job now, right? Okay, so we have some very important ground rules here. So be nice, respectful, constructive, interact with people like you'd like to be treated. Don't post anything if it's adult, rude, or offensive. We'll be the judge of that. Do not advertise or promote anything. Only people that are on camera get to promote things. So do not promote anything in the chat. That is not your job. You cannot do that. Do not spam. Do not post the same thing again and again. It's boring. We've seen it. We've heard it, especially if you post questions, because if you post a question, then post the very same question 20 minutes later, I take you out of the queue and put you down at the end. So don't do that. You're just wasting your spot in time there. And we do not tolerate any kind of harassment. We do have ban hammers here and we will use them. But above all, have a good time. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to be both entertaining and educational. Both things in once. It's a little tricky.
We sometimes succeed at both.
Sometimes both. Most of the time, at least one.
At least one, yeah. So some brief, quick introductions. Yes. My name is Simon Lightfoot, community lead and CTO at Dev Angels London. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Randall.
So I'm Randall Schwartz. I've been a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert for 5 years now, since the very beginning of the program for that. And I'm also, for this show, the question magician, which means that I am watching the chat for you to put Q: in front of your question. That flags it to me as, oh, that's a question for the panel to answer, rather than a general chat amongst y'all, because you all talk back and forth all the time too. So I'm not ruling that out. I'm just saying, if you want our attention, put Q: in front of it, then I'll know to put it in our queue.
And we also have a Danielle. Danielle, welcome to the stage. Introduce yourself.
Hey there, everybody. Hi. By the way, I dance too. You just can't see it. Just gonna say out there. Although I leave my dash sit up on their little shelf up there, so I leave them there usually. I don't dance with mine, but anyway, hi, I'm Danielle Cox. I am the Flutter tech lead for a startup called Ardly, and but the thing I'm probably most proud of around here is I'm one of the organizers for the Flutteristas, which is an organization for female and non-binary Flutter enthusiasts. So if you happen to fit one of those categories, then let me know. And if not, and you want to help us out somehow, we're always looking for allies. So you can still hit me up, and you can catch me on Twitter or whatever it's called these days.
And we also have a John. John, welcome.
Now I'm doing it. There we go. Yeah.
Hey. John, you're on mute.
I was, yeah. I caught Simon before with that. So
there we go.
Yeah, so John, I work on the Flutter community, Medium community site and getting those published and hanging out doing Flutter whenever I can with Randall, answering lots of questions in Discord, and just been doing it for a while.
It means I can actually take a little time off because I see John in there answering stuff. I can go, it's covered. I'm gone. So that does help me out a bit too, because otherwise I'm there 24/7. It seems.
Yeah.
Yep.
Randall, would you like to introduce our other guest?
Yes, so we have a special guest with us today, and we'll let him introduce himself mostly because he's good at that. This is let's welcome Brett Sutton to the show.
Thanks, Randall. And I don't know whether I feel up to being special, but here I am. But I have to make it. I have to find offence at your comments about flat Earth. Being an Australian, I am hanging from the ceiling, but.
So you're saying it's kind of vampires and bats? Is that what you're trying to say?
Exactly. We actually have a lot of bats at our place, so yes.
Great. So tell us, describe yourself, please. Yes, go ahead.
So I'm one of the founders of OnePub. I'm also the author of Declay, one of my favourite hobby projects. If you haven't heard of Declay, it's a console SDK for Dart, as I describe it. And OnePub is a private repository for Dart packages.
Awesome. And you're here today. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, keep going, Randall.
We have a slight delay because it takes a long time for signals to get all the way directly to the feet.
Those electrons take a while to get around the Earth.
I thought I heard earlier on the show the world was flat.
You're funny,
right? Yeah.
Only where Randall lives.
Yeah, it's and also as it crosses the equator, they have to go through the electron reversers because it changes the spin, right?
Well, I think we have positrons here, not electrons. So
okay, yes. So
save me. Save me.
My bathtub does run the other direction.
Right. So I'm familiar with DCLI because I've been using it for a while, and I'm also familiar with OnePub. But you have a special announcement you want to make today, right?
Yeah, so we've been running the OnePub Dart Community Choice Awards for the last month or so, and having people nominate and vote for their favourite Dart package. And so I'm here tonight to announce the winners, of which we have. Well, actually, let me just the runners up. So in the Choice Awards, the top 5 runners up, and some of them are no surprise, and some of them I've never heard of, to be perfectly honest. At number 5 was Block, which I've got to say I do not like, but a lot of people use it, but a lot of people like it.
Actually, Brett, even though you can't show your camera, can you share a screen that might have what you're looking at on?
I've not used your tool before. Where is the screen share option even?
It's down where it says
share screen at the bottom.
The one that says present.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because that would make it a little more visual for us if you could do that.
Let's see how we go. We want that one. Let me actually.
He's got something up, Simon.
Yeah, just let me know when you want to bring that up on stream.
And
we have technology here. We just don't always know how to use it.
Well, I wasn't actually prepared for this. So I actually shut a couple of things down in the system. So let me just reactivate a couple of things. I can show you something useful.
In the meantime, we'll just a little announcement. Yeah, make sure you get your questions in now. So the plan for the show is we're going to do this brief introduction. We're going to do some chat about the Flutter news and some various things. Then we'll answer your questions, and then we'll do some live coding. And we hope to try and close the show up on the 2-hour mark. And we're already 15 minutes in. So we got punch high here.
When I see it. I believe that when I see it.
I'm going to have to leave from that meeting, and I'll probably be able to come back afterward and still be going.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Anyway.
So when you're ready.
Yeah. Simon.
Go for it. Yeah. Sorry.
So at number 5, we had Block, which I think everybody's familiar with. Then after that one was Riverpod, was the next number 4. And
yay!
Which I've never actually used Riverpod. I don't know whether you guys have. I don't mind the looks of it. It looks a little more coherent. I think Block is, in my opinion. But and then we get to
Randall loves Block. I'm actually going to be using Block in the next project.
No. The other of that.
Oh, sorry, Riverpod. Sorry, yeah.
We deployed Block in a reasonably large project. Spent about 6 weeks doing so. Did the code review, and everybody in the team said, "Rip it out. More lines of code, more complexity," and gave us actually no benefits from the sort of hodgepodge of state systems we'd had. So maybe we did it wrong, but did not like the results.
No, sorry.
Multi-image crop.
Riverpod. Sorry.
Riverpod. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on, carry on.
That's all right. Multi-image pod was number 3 in our list. I've never used the tool, but I think it sort of speaks for itself what it's about. And the next one, the number 2, was Open Food Facts. Again, never heard of it either, but obviously some people out there liked it. There's obviously some, and some organisations, some product leads out there actually went out and promoted their product on the competition. So, and in fact, the winner is the Alarm Project, which did a fairly good job of actually promoting their product, has been getting their users to actually come and support them on the OnePub Community Choice Awards. So the author of Alarm is, and I'm going to screw up his pronunciation, so I apologise to begin with, is Gautier de Latilade, I think, not probably how it's pronounced, of the Alarm Project. So well done to him. I've been in contact with him when arranging the $500 prize to go out to Gautier. And we also had a random draw of $100 if you put a review into the system, because OnePub has a reviewing system that you can actually leave reviews on each of the individual packages. So Gautier won the $100 prize. Sorry, not Gautier. Igor Jovanov. I'm sure I've pronounced that incorrectly. I'm sure the J is not pronounced as a J. Won the $100 prize for leaving a review on the system as well.
Cool.
Looks like Gautier is here and said you did a pretty good job on the.
Oh, he's here. He's here. He's
good enough. Wow.
Good enough.
Congrats.
I was about to promote his name on the screen here. That's Gautier's profile. And how you pronounce this, I want to know, but
I wouldn't have tried even.
I'm not going to.
I would have said that guy.
In all fairness, when you're saying like good enough on pronouncing the name, it means you got it wrong. It's okay.
You got it wrong in the same way that most people get it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's what it means. You're consistent, but wrong.
I think Gautier actually anticipated me getting it wrong. He let me apologise to him before we actually went on live. So he was expecting.
Nice.
Hey, one last thing. One last thing. We are about to launch a new search for Dart packages. OnePub contains it's almost 50,000 Dart packages now. So we're about to release. This is actually just a very early beta on screen, but we've gone through and categorized so far about 6,000 of the Dart packages. We'll have 8,000 done hopefully by the end of the month, which includes the top 20% of Dart packages. It's been an interesting project. We've used some AI to try and help us do that, but most of it I've done. It's been a tedious project.
I was going to say, whose problem was it to go through those packages?
That was me. I actually built an app. I'm sitting in bed at night going through categorizing package after package. I can do about 100 an hour. But
this is a relevant question here. So what is OnePub and what is compared to Pub? We know what Pub is. What's OnePub?
So OnePub is our private. So OnePub.dev is a private repository, so you can subscribe to it. We've got a free tier for people, up to I think about 5 team members, that lets them publish their own private packages that only their team can access, no one else can. But as part of building OnePub, we thought, hang on, we've got these private packages, people want to search for them, so we have to have a search interface. Oh, why don't we load the whole pub dev in here at the same time? So we actually have a sync process. We're about less than 5 minutes behind when you publish the pub dev. So the result was we had 50,000 packages sitting here. We need to provide a search interface. We did originally, and it wasn't great. So what we've done is gone through this process of cataloging, classifying, as I said, about 6,000 packages into about 600 categories. And now we have a fairly slick search interface. We use some AI. These little images you can see on my screen, the little swatches we actually use the Stability AI to actually generate those images. It's like herding cats trying to get to do what you want. So we've got a really nice search engine coming out. That's going to come out in the next few days. So we're a bit excited about that.
That's cool.
Great. Cool.
So,
thanks for coming on the show, but I hear you're going to stick around and help us with some of our questions here.
I could try. My expertise is more Dart than Flutter, but if I can help, I'm happy to answer a few questions.
We always
have
have
questions. I'm sure. Yes. Cool.
Right. Let's I guess get to the questions then.
Yeah, let's do it. Let me push some more buttons here. We've got 9 questions, well, 8 questions in the queue. So that's a good start. But continue to put Q colon in front of your questions so that I notice that while I'm also still reading these over here. So let's start with this one. So I need to implement communication between my app and a medical device. Ooh, not specified. Via serial port. Apps being developed for macOS and Windows. And I'm running into some issues, not surprising. So far, I've worked with live serial port, but have found out that the baud rate does not change when I alter the configuration for the port. Any idea, Simon?
Well, the thing is, well, in short, no. So it's been a while since I've actually done serial port stuff. I'll be honest with you. It has been quite some time, especially in terms of programming. The last time I did this was POS systems. And that was some time ago. The thing is, it may be that the library itself doesn't support those features. I would go track down. So what you could try doing in terms of trying to debug this is to clone the lib serial port. I guess that's the package on pub, because you should have a package. I believe there's several serial port packages on pub, but you could clone those, run them, and put breakpoints in the right places. Just that you would the same process you would do if you're developing a plugin, and then you could probably see, or modify the code and see what's going on and see why it's causing the problem it is.
If I can jump in there. Sorry, if you have a look, there's actually 3 serial packages I've identified on pubdev: serial _ communication, lib serial port, and USB serial. So some alternatives to have a look at as well.
But if you want to pop them in the chat, then that would be great. In the comments section, then people can go look them up. I was going to say that something that I've done with Dart directly is you can just open up any device in your system, any file, and on Mac-based systems, for example, and Windows, there's actually part of the filing system that you can access using the correct URLs, and you can actually open up devices directly. So you should be able to open up. I've got to remember this on Windows. It's like //dot/com1, and actually use the Win32 package to actually control the baud rate. So from Windows, you can actually do that directly. You don't even need lib serial port for that. And on Mac, I believe it's very similar. Like you can access the functions yourself. Obviously, this means that you need to go down a level, right, and actually work closer to the metal. However, there's lots of information about how to use serial ports. Trust me, on both Mac and Windows. So it's just a case of replicating that, but in Dart. And you can definitely do that with FFI, or with the stuff that's already out there. So that may also be an option. But at least you could also just try making a native, like go grab yourself, I don't know, C# or was it Visual Studio with C# or something, and just try communicating with those APIs and see if the hardware is reacting the way you expect it to. Because it might be that it is trying to set the baud rate, but it's just not working, right? Maybe the drivers are failing, or the hardware doesn't synchronize and doesn't let you do it, something like that. So it's worth checking down, debugging it yourself first before you start kind of going at it. Don't put too much effort into it, basically, because it could be out of your control. Hopefully that helps.
Sounds like that's what we know. Okay, on to the next one then.
So briefly,
go ahead.
Could also be permissions related. You said it's on a medical device. Perhaps if your app isn't running in admin privilege level on Windows, you probably don't have access to the devices. So there may be a limitation as to how you can control them. You may be able to open and communicate, but not actually control the baud rate. So just maybe worth checking into permissions. Sorry, let's crack on.
Okay, so how can I unit test my Firestore remote data source class?
With great difficulty. So like the problem you've got here is, what are you trying to test? Are you trying to test your connection to Firestore? I mean, you can do that if you want to, Are you just trying to test to make sure that your actual data source class returns the models when they exist in Firestore? Well, you can mock that. So, I mean, like, you don't have to test the Firestore library and anything like that. So as long as you mock your interface to, in fact, it actually supports that. So if you go look at Flutter Fire, it uses what's the universal package interface? Federated packages. If you go look up federated packages on Flutter, you'll find there's like a schema, this notion of like a platform interface, and you can just override that with your own test interface that's mock and fake the responses that would happen from the plugin. But it kind of, I think at that point, it kind of defeats the purpose. What you probably want to do is put all your Firestore communications behind an interface, and then that interface is what you mock and the rest of your app uses. And then you can then test your code, not the plugin code. Anyone else want anything to add to that? I mean,
I want to echo what you're saying there, is that I see people sometimes writing tests for things that are really the responsibility of the person making the library, not your code. It's not, you're not testing your code, you're testing their code, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, we got to trust that their code ran their tests.
If they've got tests, right? That's the thing. If they don't have tests, then, and you want to test, make sure it works, test the code, but then submit it back as a PR and put it in their repo, right? That's the thing.
So you don't need to test that when Firebase is given this query, this response comes back, because that's already been tested. If you have a known query, you should have a known response. That part's already working pretty much. You can guarantee that. What you were testing is from here backward, from here towards the rest of your code. And at that point, you can mock the response you got and push that through your system. So that you don't have to have Firebase in the loop to do that. You only need to have your mock response that you are expecting from Firebase. So, yeah. That's,
the only thing I add in there is you need to keep in mind that you also need to have integration tests, because it's always that what I call the impedance mismatch. Your expectation of how the API works and how it actually works. The only way to actually validate that is to actually interact with it and see that it's actually doing what you expect. So yes, you've got to have tests at multiple levels.
Yeah, to be clear, they did ask about unit tests, but yeah, that is totally not true. You need to, at least when you deploy your app, you should be running a suite of integration tests to validate that your main flows inside your main user journeys inside your app are actually working as expected.
You want to make sure when you ship it to customers that they don't just get a dead app. That would be helpful. That would be sad.
It's like I've seen about like you edit, like someone alters the login process in some fashion. It's a tiny tweak.
Yeah.
When it actually runs in production, it just blows up completely, and then suddenly no one can log into the app, and it's all hell breaks loose, right? Like that's the kind of thing that you don't want to happen.
Very sad.
That's also what I was going to talk about, was a little bit of integration testing, because we're at Ardley we have a front end team and a back end team, and the back end is a black box as far as we're concerned, but we do have issues where there's times where changes aren't in sync or they weren't exact, things like that. And so we definitely have integration tests that we've written so that we can drive going through the whole app and making sure that it's behaving the way we expect it to be. But I mean, you definitely need to be what you expect with that. So something like Firebase, you can feel pretty certain that they've got their tests for that, So you don't need to do for example, we got a question about coverage testing coming up. I mean, we don't need to worry about coverage testing Firebase, but making sure that I've got an actual credentials that'll connect to it properly. Maybe I do. I don't know. Things like that to make sure that I've got things plugged in the way I want to are probably a good idea. And maybe you do have some more detailed tests that you run like after upgrades, for example. So maybe you do want something like that, depending on what it is that you're doing and how normal it is. How much, if you've got edge cases that you're doing, then that might be a little bit different. And like Simon said, at that point, then go ahead, or maybe it was Randall, I don't remember now which one said it, but go ahead and create a test, but submit it to the actual, repo so that they can have a test that covers your edge case versus you testing to make sure it happens. So
cool. Shall we move on, Simon? Yes.
Yeah.
So, in fact, speaking of testing, when I use Flutter test -- coverage, is there any way to exclude specific folders that I have generated files? Well, you can exclude generated files, right?
When I use Flutter test -- coverage, is there a way to exclude specific folders that have generated files? I feel like I've done that, but I don't remember how.
Yeah.
According to Stack Overflow, there's a -remove flag, if I've read this correctly.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
It sounds about right. I know the problem with that stuff is I feel like there's I remember last time I had to do the cover stuff, I had to do like a bunch of like little scripty things to do to like, because I was trying to get coverage on multiple packages, and then you have to combine the multiple package coverages together if you want like one massive coverage report for everything, and then you have to then process the LCOV, the combined LCOV for all packages together. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Something like that. Something like that. That's in the chat. So if you want to get this from the chat later, it's there.
Nice. There you go.
Cool. All right. Move on.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. I'm working as a Flutter developer. Congratulations. You're one of the few. I'm thinking of quitting my job. Oh, no. I need a roadmap to prepare for intermediate Flutter developer role. Can you please help me with that? Simon, he said the word roadmap. What does that
know.
your response?
There you go. It triggers this.
He has this on a hotkey of 4 keys. He just hits, and then boom, up comes the roadmap.
So I'll pop this website in the chat if anyone wants to see it. It's a community-driven roadmap. You can go add content if you want to, but the idea here is basically for your own personal journey, what you need to learn about basics of Dart functions, just from the very beginning, CLI, widgets, IDEs, working with assets, the lot basically. And this will go take you on for the onwards journey of like looking into as state management, animations, unit testing we just spoke about, CI/CD, deployment analytics. I mean, this kind of gives you a good rounded sort of a set of topics that you can go traverse through and kind of have a journey that makes sense, because jumping around is always what everyone does, and it's very difficult to kind of holistically kind of understand that in context with everything else that you've learned so far. So having something like a roadmap like this really helps with a journey. However, roadmaps, this website, I found it the other day, actually do other things like, Android developer, QA engineer, so if you've got something UX, just a general computer science, you can go learn about that, big O notation, sorting algorithms. They've got a lot of content on here that I think is just super useful for a lot of people to learn. I think there was one in here I saw, software design and architecture. Again, lots of content, architectural designs and patterns. Spoke about DTOs the other day, data transfer objects. So there's repositories. There you go.
How to succeed at buzzword bingo.
We should just do that. We should do like Flutter bingo one week. That would be fun.
There we go. And my theory about how to become an intermediate Flutter developer is you figure out everything it takes to be an expert Flutter developer and do half of that.
Then now you're intermediate, right?
Yeah. I mean, to me, the difference when I'm looking at a developer is, a junior developer can do whatever you ask them to do. You can tell them to do this task, they can do it. When you start being intermediate or advanced, you start understanding why you do things. And so I don't have a fancy roadmap to go look at and show like Simon or Don or anybody, but I do have. I mean, but in my mind, that's the big thing is start questioning why you make something, and also start having opinions. In my opinion, you should start. And I don't mean just to be contrary. I mean, have a favorite. Be like Randall and love Riverpod if that works for you. I mean, but find something and start really actually forming your own opinions of what you like better. because I think that when you're going to interview, even if you have to use something else, that's not a problem. You'll use whatever they're telling you to do, and you may learn, you may even change your mind. But it's a lot better to, instead of just throwing out stuff you read on some site about how to interview for an intermediate Flutter job, that you actually can back up what you're thinking, because you've gone through and you've thought about it and you've come up with opinions and stuff. So that's my thought.
And I'll add what I always add about maturing in the craft, because again, I call programming a craft, and that it has the science. Yes, I understand how Dart works, I understand how Flutter works, but there's also the art to it. And that involves reviewing as much code as you can, study other people's works. One of the first thing I do when somebody tells me about a project is I immediately go to their pub spec, and I wonder, why did they use this? They use that combination of things. That's interesting. Be curious about why things are in a pub spec, and you'll start to really develop your breadth and depth, because you're going to start understanding how people put these large projects together.
I think there's also I think that I'd say you learn, like, the best thing you can do is do, right? Don't you have to be. You can't just sit back and expect it to happen, right? Or just go along at this level, right? You need to push. You need to push yourself to the next level, right? And put your heart and soul and effort into learning more, because then you will gain that knowledge. If you want to, if you push yourself, you can gain it in a shorter amount of time than it would take for maybe spending another 2 years on the job as a junior, right? For example, and not taking that journey. Also depends on, another thing you can do is, if you wanted to switch from, assuming you're a junior, because you said you want to go intermediate, but if you just wanted to, you could just sidestep to another company as a junior, where you feel that they might have people that can help you learn more, that you can learn from the people on the job. Because that's the other thing, that where you are right now, if you're not learning from everyone, they're just saying do this, but they're not saying why are you doing that. Maybe you should be challenging those questions and saying, okay, I understand what you want me to do, but why have you chosen to do it this way? And having those conversations with the senior or tech lead or whoever's on your project, that's the kind of thing you probably need to do, and gain, the knowledge trickles down.
I always have this theory. That to be great programmers are created by working with great programmers. So if you're working with a team and they feel mediocre, to me that'd be enough reason to jump ship and find a team that actually has some great programmers you can learn from.
It's really tough to actually you have to spend a lot of time learning, right? Like there's so much to computer science, so much broad, not just like you got apps, sure, like you looked at the Flutter roadmap, that's very much Flutter centered, and it does reach out into like gear and other stuff you'll need along the way, but it doesn't talk about AV processing. It doesn't talk about transmitting video across the internet. Like there's just the list of all the topics that you can possibly learn just goes on and on and on as an endless list, right? And the thing is, there's also I kind of feel like something that you learn along the way, and I kind of want to get the other guests here kind of ideas on this. I think something you learn as a developer along the way is how to read documentation, and like how to kind of like take a framework, go, okay, they built it like there's a kind of an aspect of, I think when you look at least right now, when I look at a framework or a library or something, I go, the thing that Randall said, why did they choose to do it that way? It's like you look at it and go, if I was to build it, I would be doing it this way, and lo and behold, they've maybe kind of done it that way. Or what happens if I want to learn about, I don't know, listen to the event that takes place, and there's a listener there. You can just do add listener. There's a function for that. So it's kind of like there's kind of an expectation to delivery, and then you can see, is that library what you're looking for, or something like that. And I think there's that kind of gone off of track here. What I was going to say, because my headphone just ran out of battery.
We've lost you, Simon. We've lost you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with what you're saying. One thing though that I've noticed was, I had an intern working for me, so he was below junior at that point, really. And then I've got someone working for me. It's solidly intermediate, and the difference is both of them would ask me, why are we doing it this way? And the junior would just say, why are we doing this or whatever, and I would try to explain stuff. But the intermediate says, why are we doing it this way and not that way? So it's much more of a comparison as to, it would seem to me that this is the same or that it's better or whatever, and then I could discuss with him why, we're doing it the way we're doing it, and convince him or not at that point. So that's I think that's listening to stuff that came to my mind, because that's the difference in like even the questions they're asking, even though it's kind of the same question on the surface, it's different how you're coming at it.
And I want to get one more point, and then we can let John and Brett talk a little bit more. But one of the things I think is horribly undervalued by most managers is the ability to transfer knowledge at skill levels via pair programming. So if you're weak, find a stronger person in your team and say, can I just sit in and watch you code for a while? Even that level of pair programming will do a knowledge transfer, but actually being involved, where you're both cooperating and generating things, and each person can ask the other, well, why'd you do it this way? And start doing that knowledge transfer. That's really handy. It's I found every time I pair program with someone in an area that I'm not familiar with, it really helps me understand maybe their code base or their particular packages they're using, things like that. And it really helps to just be right there in the code at the same time, making decisions about things.
It's also like the nice thing you do is you can literally ask and go, what? Okay, but why are you doing it that way? Like you can literally ask the why question. Like all of this CS stuff will teach you how and what, but never the why, right? They'll teach you what this stuff is and how it works, but not why you should choose to do it a certain way or what the process is. And it's always something that kind of comes across as something you need to learn as you go, and you need people to teach you that, really. Anything else from anyone else? Otherwise, we'll move on to another question.
Yeah.
I just like to come back to your point about that question you ask yourself is, how would I do it? I find that's a really valuable part of particularly when I'm debugging using third-party code, and asking that question is, how would I do this? Often it just gives you so much insight into the framework or the tool you're using. If you ask yourself, how would I do it? Because it gives you a leaping off point in terms of thinking about what the tool does and how it does it.
Nice.
Cool. Well, and I just put a comment in the chat here that I wanted to bring up on screen.
Oh, you want to bring up?
Just here, because I was sort of repeating what like here. So my comment is that managers look at pair programming, they say, why should I pay double for 1.5 the output? But it really, every time I've seen it, it's double for triple the output. So keep that in mind. Yeah. All right. Let's see what the next question is here. I think that's this. Oh, it's two people driving again. Oh, I'm doing virtual Scott now. All right. How would you use Firebase for a paginated infinite list with real-time capability? Ooh. I only listen to current page and its neighbors, but adding items to both sides of the list leads to jumps. Oh, the old scroll position problems.
Okay. Simon, how do you need to go back. Was it 2 or 3 shows ago at the very end? We did a live coding session where we literally did this. So that's one problem you can solve. I also made a widget that's on Pub. It's a list. Infinite _ list view, I think it is, something like that. And that basically just has two. Basically, what it does, it has 2 list views, one going in reverse, one going forward, and now you have infinite going both directions. So if you want to add content to the top one, it doesn't affect the bottom one. And they just, when you scroll one, it scrolls them both, so they scroll in tandem, and essentially you get an infinite list. But that's kind of like a little hack just to continue using the current slivers and the way it all works. But equally enough, you can there's scrollable and viewport widgets that you can use to do your own scrolling if you really want to. I did actually make a widget for paginated Firebase listening, and that is, I believe, on my gists. So we go to gist.github.com/slightfoot. You'll find that. It's old, but I'm sure you could bring it up to speed. It's probably did in 2018 or something.
That code still works.
It should do. I mean, like the principles of what I was doing in there was more about like you're using Firebase to get a stream. You keep track of those streams per page so that you can continue listening to the items. and each following page you're doing your start at or whatever it is on your query. So essentially what happens as you scroll down, you're listening to you're doing a query for a page set of maybe 25, 50 items, right? And that way you can kind of keep listening live to the items that change, even when they scroll off the screen and stuff like that. So,
anyone else, or shall we move on? Any other responses to that? Okay, let's move on. Haven't heard of any Flutter conferences recently. Any major features the team is working on for Flutter 4? First, big disclaimer every freaking week. We are not Google. We do not work for Google. Google does not employ us. We are just community members just like you. Well, some of us have titles, but other than that, we're just normal people.
Some of us get dashes.
We don't know what they're doing. Yeah, we get dashes. Yes, that's about it. And cool bags and things like that. No, I've got some swag. But no, we don't know what's going on. We don't know. We know as much as you know, in that you can go
read the roadmap.
Yeah, there's a roadmap on both the Dart places and the Flutter places. There are roadmaps that give the ultimate direction, or at least the intended direction. Simon is quickly finding those while I'm busy hand waving here a bit. But yeah, so that's where to get that. And about Flutter conferences, you can pretty much count on one every 6 months or so. Maybe it's a part of another.
There's 2 of them in September.
I mean, there's Flutter and Friends happening. Use this code, Flutter Community, and get 10% off. And that's in Stockholm, 3rd or 5th September. And then we've got Firebase Flutter Festival, which is actually in co-organization with Google. And there's all these Flutter Googlers and Firebase Googlers all going to be there at f3.events. You can go to that website and learn more about it in September. These things are happening all the time. I'd say to the person who asked the question, sorry, here, was it Verdi? Go look. Oh, no, that's the last one. Sorry. Yep. We need to wipe them off as we go. Right. James. Go look up to meetup.com as well, because there's tons of there's tons of stuff coming out. But is every quarter they release a major stable version, right?
Speaking of that, tomorrow I'm doing a GDG meetup. So let's get introduction to Flutter. Not really appropriate for maybe most of you, but if you want to bring your friends along and have an introduction to Flutter talk, I'll try to find the link for that and put it in the show notes.
But I mean, like you're talking here about any feature the team is working on. I mean, it's all in the public repo. It's all open source. Go look at the commit history. In fact, one of the best places that I mean, I must be one of the last people that still uses Twitter, I think, right now. But there's the Flutter. I'm trying to find it now. Flutter merge bot on there. I am going to find it here. Let me bring this up on stream briefly if I can share it properly. There we go. So there's a bot called at Flutter merge. And what happens is as soon as a PR is merged, it grabs a little screenshot of the PR and a link and everything else, so you can see fixed Flutter tools to use local engine, reorganize and clarify docs generator. What else we got here? Honestly, some you come across explain the keyboard manager protocols, and as soon as you go into these and go look at them, you can go look at the stuff before it comes out, right? This goes into the master branch, and then every stable, all this stuff is brought together and released in the release notes for a stable release. Finally, fixed the extent for null return in the grid build. Kate love it. There you go. And it on and on and on, right? So there's so much that you can learn by just monitoring the repo. So I'm trying to find something that has some really good meaning to everyone, but paginated data table improvements, that might help some people. Anyway, you get the idea.
Lots of stuff. All right, let's move on. We still got a lot of questions and not much time left again. As always, I don't know what's up for live coding today. Speaking of our upcoming live coding, would you mind showing how to implement a custom scroll behavior? Don't know of an example, but in the Coding with Mitch video, you mentioned that it's easy.
Maybe you can be a bit more explicit about custom scroll behavior, because there's a thing called scroll behavior in Flutter. I don't think you mean that. I think maybe you mean some behavior caused from scrolling. I don't know. I mean, In fact, I did the examples for this in. Hang on. What did I do? I did examples on the Flutter effects page on the official Flutter site. Hang on. They asked me to build some examples. Cookbook effects. Here, let's bring this up on stream. So I'll put the link into this in the chat. But basically, if you go to the cookbook, you've got a bunch of like little examples, and then there's like scrolling parallax effect here. See if that loads up. Come on, the one time I want you to load.
First.
There we go. So that kind of thing. There you go. Is that kind of thing what you're asking about? That kind of like
cool.
I just saw somebody on Twitter asking about that today, saying, "Can we do?"
Well, there you go. Post on the link if you can find them again, John. Like, so this is a little walkthrough, a code example, talking about all the different widgets being used, how they've been implemented, and then leaving you with a completely interactive example that you can, show off, right?
Wow.
And tweak and play around with. So there's that one. And there was also photo filter carousel, which is another one I remember. So this has got this little scrolly thing at the bottom here. So this is very much like a filter kind of thing going on here. And again, that's the same thing. That talks about how you do custom scrolling and control widgets and stuff like that. I don't know,
if you haven't gone through the cookbook in a year, you're missing a lot. Lots of new things have been added over the last year and
this one as well. This was kind of cool one to do, which was
cookbook's amazing.
Or like it's not the animation on here probably doesn't capture it nice enough for when you actually do it in person.
Yeah,
it's really nice and smooth. I don't know if you guys can see that a bit better now. But
yes, if you fly to Mountain View and go stand in front of the servers.
Exactly, you'll see it a lot quicker, more FPS, less electron slowdown,
and reversing.
No reversing, yeah.
What was that other one I did? There was I did a couple of these. Yeah, so you got that kind of like little typing indicator, which is another kind of popular kind of like thing to do. I'm going to skip down to the bottom here and just turn it on.
Cool.
Which again, most people like that kind of thing. Every chat app has something like that. And then another one, I think another one was this one here. So how do you like? And you can't really tell on there possibly, but this is like showing you how you might do like a gradient, but the actual gradients. I don't know if you noticed this, but it's actually.
Ooh, I see it. That's cool.
It's in the background, but it moves with the items. So there's like some really cool like things that are happening. But it does. It's like these subtle things that when you put them into play, and you're watching, and you're scrolling through something, it has a playful, interesting nature, and it keeps the eye. But I'm sure you'll find lots. Yeah, I mean, there's like I'm just going through some of these because I remember them. But is that kind of another thing that you kind of see, like this kind of like progress when you hit like download, and then once it's finished you transitions to a different button, and how to do this kind of effects. I think what we'll come back, but the link is in the chat if people want to go explore. When we do some live coding, we're going to do some animations, and we can see how you can do some of these kind of cool little things. Right, cool. What's next?
And we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I know a couple of you had to leave, so just feel free to pop out whenever you want, and thanks for coming on the show. And we'll just keep answering questions.
I will, and we'll put this up here. Get your questions in the chat right now because we want to get to them. And we'll be cutting off soon, so get them into the chat now.
Whatever he says. Yes, get your questions in. That's the important thing. Let's go. Next one. How can I convert a Razorpay plugin to Dart SDK when it's only available for Android, iOS, and web somehow? Well, you write the Razor company and you tell them to change their API so that it works from Dart.
I mean, the fact that it's available in Android, iOS, and web means you can work with it in Dart and Flutter, surely. Or do you mean you just want to work on Dart so it can be run server-side outside of like an Android, iOS, web environment? I think you need some clarification on what you're actually trying to ask here because, I mean, the two things you've got. One is it's their code, and if it's not open source, nothing you can do about it, right? If it's open source, well, you can go read their code and work out how it works and do a Dart SDK for it, right?
There already is a there's a number of Razorpay packages on PubDev, Razorpay Web, Razorpay Flutter, which I assume wrap their SDK.
This is what I was going to say. Like most of the stuff you see will just, and this is the next thing is if you're not doing it yourself, and you're not because you want it, still in Flutter. If you still want it in the Flutter world, when it runs on Android, it uses Android. You just wrap you're going to want to look at the Flutter.dev documentation on building plugins, and then you can just build your own plugin. But by the sounds of it, Brett just said there's plenty of packages for it. So
I've just posted the official Razorpay Flutter SDK built by Razorpay.
Oh, there is an official one. There you go.
Razorpay _Flutter.
Sweet.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So on the next one here, let's see. Thoughts on IDX? I played with it a little bit. I haven't had anywhere near enough time to play with it since I got authorized.
Sorry, to be clear, Brett, are you posting in the live chat on YouTube?
I'm posting on the live chat on whatever forum we're into now. Was it StreamYard? What are the questions that are appearing up? I'm posting to that.
Okay, because that may not go out.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Things with URLs do get filtered, and I think only the moderators can actually post links. So if you pop it in the private chat, if you pop in the private chat, I can.
Well, you can grab it right out of the actual chat. But
I don't see it. It doesn't even come.
It shows up for me in the feed, in the comments feed, the live feed.
Oh, you did see it there. Then maybe I missed.
I see it there, but I don't see it on the YouTube feed.
Ah,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Now I see it on the.
I see it there now. Yeah.
Repaste that.
But to be clear on the question there, this app is only listed as doing Android and iOS, and that was the complaint. Was he was wanting to do it for Windows or Mac.
He wasn't clear about that point, and I asked him to clarify. I think the question here was, it's only available on these, but
you're right. Okay. I assumed he's asking that because he wants to use on one of the other ones.
Yeah.
Let's find out. Repost and we'll find out.
Yep. We'll look for your questions.
Next.
Don't worry.
Right.
Yes. And here's this thoughts on Project IDX. So
I just got my invitation comes through. I haven't tried it.
Did you? Right. I fired it up. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to launch the Linux instance, the Linux container. But it felt like using it felt like what's the other project that's similar to that? Zap? Is it Zap?
Yeah, Zap.
Where you start a virtual machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a few. GitHub has a version that they will run on the same backend, the same OSS backend.
But I mean,
I have not checked out the AI though. That's the thing that makes this interesting is that we've got Google's AI being squirted in the middle of this. I have not had a chance to play with that, and I'm really anxious to. Just haven't had spare time since.
So you can just like create a Flutter app and hit play, and it runs in the browser with like their own sort of like VM, just like the docs and everything. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Right. And so that but it also has all their smarts. It's got their Palm access to it inside it. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, we'll check that out more, and I'll have more to report next week here.
I was gonna say if the invites are going out, that'll give us a chance to play with it some more.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Right. Come back next week and ask again.
Speaking of AI,
we'll see soon.
Speaking of AI, regarding the question about preparing to be an intermediate developer, where does ChatGPT fit in your opinion? Should junior and intermediate coders be using ChatGPT a lot? No.
So I would say if you're using it to get an idea, but then going through it to understand what it gives, maybe. But just know that a lot of times you're getting something that might not work.
I think I treat ChatGPT like any other web source of code. You just don't know what it's going to work on. I find it's a really good. It's really good at simple stuff, and you can almost cut and paste. And more than 50% of the time it'll work. But anything complicated, it's useless for, generally speaking. But certainly in terms of a launching point to get ideas, particularly if it's not a concept you're familiar with, I think it's quite useful for juniors at that point. Just don't trust what it tells you.
Yeah, this is it. So it says things authoritatively. So it's authoritatively wrong is the statement I make of ChatGPT. it will literally say, this is the way to do it, but totally not, right?
Here's my hotkey on it right now. So LMs generate plausible text, not most likely text or accurate text. So it's plausible, just believable with confidence. That's great. I use it as a creative assistant, but it's not an authoritative source. And if you start learning from it, you will be as dumb as it is. So
I heard something recent. So I heard something recently that said apparently ChatGPT is getting dumber in its replies because of the questions and the information that it's now learning from, or something like that. Like
it's looping around. People are posting these as answers, and then it takes that as part of the average that it's been generating.
I'll tell you, Randall and I see it all the time in Discord. People will come in and ask for help with something. And they'll post the code and we'll look at it and we'll be like, yeah, that's not going to work. And we'll find out, well, yeah, they just went to ChatGPT, asked it to do something, got the source, put it into their code, and it didn't work. And now they don't know why.
And they expect us to fix it. They expect the smart people to fix
that's
it.
the other issue I've got with this. Like someone should be coming to ask something that I've seen online for a lot. People too often just go straight to like Stack Overflow on it. They don't try themselves first. Try yourself first, then go and see if you can get a hint on where you need to direct your efforts, and then go further. Right? Don't just go and get an answer and then go, oh, that worked, brilliant, and move on, because you didn't learn anything, right?
Nope.
Sorry.
Well,
that's why I say look at it, understand it.
Yeah. I mean, first off, to answer the actual question that was asked, I think it's worse than a junior or an intermediate. It doesn't fit in like either way because of the things that have been said already. So, and I would say the answer is no. And should they be using ChatGPT a lot? But anyway, even if we go to like Stack Overflow and things like that, a lot of times those answers are going to be wrong, or they're going to be they're going to contain things that are extra because you don't have enough context of what they did. And so if you're copying that in there, it's a context is a bad example, but I mean, but it'd be something like where like in a stateful widget, you've got access to the context when you're running stuff, but in other places you may not. And so if you just go grab something that was the example was in a stateful widget and it has context, dot whatever, it's not going to work for you. And then you're got no clue why, and you're going to say, well, this is just a bad answer. So you got to be careful with everything in there. And I've said it before, people have laughed at me, but my favorite Stack Overflow answers are the ones that are slightly wrong, because I can learn from them.
I think we've got to remember though that one of the problems that junior programmers have is they don't know where to start. I'm learning to MIG weld at the moment. I've got no idea what I'm doing, and so sometimes. I'm sure you've all experienced it. Sometimes it's like you're doing Google and you're Googling and you're Googling and Googling and you can't find the answers. And then you find that one key word.
Yep. The one phrase, the one term.
Correct. Right. And so we've got to remember these juniors are living in a vacuum. I talk about knowledge being a jigsaw puzzle. The more pieces you fit in, the easier it is to fill in the rest of the jigsaw puzzle. They don't have a jigsaw puzzle yet. There's no pieces laid down. And ChatGPT can sort of put the outer edge of the jigsaw puzzle in for them.
But the problem here is it's about asking it to point you in the right direction, not give you an answer, right? Not go, my code does this, what does this mean? Or I get this error, fix me this, and just taking it and going with it. No, it's about using the tool correctly and going, okay, I'm having a problem doing this. Do you know what I should be looking for? And then go back, you should be probably looking up sorting algorithms or whatever the term is that you're looking for. And then you can go read up about that and learn on your own, or even ask you, say, can you tell me more about sorting algorithms, and doing that kind of thing, right?
I like part of the BART approach to things a little bit more, where you ask it, you can give it a piece of code and you say, what, let's say like a regular expression. And you can say, why is it, what does it, what does this mean? Or why does this match it? Or things like that. And I think that's an overall better way to learn, is because you're trying to actually understand the algorithm. And not that BART is that good at Flutter, but I like that approach a little better. And the other thing that's worth saying, I mean, it's said all the time, but ChatGPT, at least on the free version, still like using older models, right? So
I was gonna say, from why
I just posted a video that talked about isolate.run, and I include in this video, I'll put the link in the show notes. I included in this video a conversation I had with ChatGPT that talked about how do you fork and isolate? What are the ways to do that? It listed spawn, it listed compute. And then I said, what about isolate run? It says, I don't know anything about an isolate run. I stopped learning in September 2021.
Yeah.
It was.
That's my point.
Actually said that.
Changed a lot since then.
So,
yeah.
a lot of it matters.
A lot of it matters.
I also want to mention that the GPT stuff is about predicting words, right? Predicting the next thing that's going to come. And when it comes to the logical flow of code, you can't, it's not that predictable in that sense. It doesn't work that same way, the syntax, right? So it's great for English, but for code, it can be it's quite something else, right? And I think that it has to be trained differently for that to really be effective. Like it's about like learning chess moves. You might like learn like 8 moves ahead or like whatever it is like computers can do now, right? But it's like trying to do that with like decisions and logic inside an application. You need to know a lot of context to kind of understand, oh, I'll go use this feature or function from a standard library because I know that exists, right? Is something that in this context, maybe no one else has done before because there's so many computational like possibilities, right? When it comes down to your precise logic and flow and what you're doing, right? And like knowing about how your app is built as a whole is things that it can't know, right? To ask it simple questions. Anyway, should move on because I'm fed up with ChatGPT. Every week we ask.
Every week we get these questions. Yes, that's right. So here we go. I'm in a small startup as a lone developer. Do you have to wear the mask? I don't know. Anyway, lone developer. Do I have and Danielle, you have to take off, right?
I do actually. This is the next question. I did actually post an answer in there that I probably want to discuss a little bit.
Well, let me finish this one, then we'll get to there. So I don't have any senior to help me learn or guide. Any alternate resource to that? Me, pick me. I can be your senior. I'm good and available. There we go. There's my pitch.
At a rate.
Yeah.
At a rate. At a competitive rate. Yes.
I think. Go on. I was going to give my answer to this. My answer to this, one thing you can do that will be humbling, but it'll help you is find an issue in the, in Flutter and go solve it. And the code reviews will tell you what you're doing wrong, for sure. And they will make suggestions about what to do. And that's relatively free. I mean, you put in the effort to do something, and you will get responses of what what you should do differently or what you should have thought of that you missed or things like that. I mean, they're very good at that. And that was my answer to that question. So now I am going to hop off.
All right. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks for stopping by. Hope to see you next week. Cool. And Brad, are you going to stick around or are you going to go?
I'll hang around for a little while. I'm at 3 a.m. and I'm awake, so the chance of getting to sleep now is probably not great.
In another 2 hours, you get up to drink beer, right?
I'm going to say you're going to regret it tomorrow, right?
I'm drinking beer now, guys. Tomorrow. Not waiting 2 hours for it.
Not waiting 2 hours.
I'm in Australia. We drink beer all the time.
Yeah, I know. I've been to Australia a few times. I know how it works there. It's pretty consistent. Anyway, let's move on. Let's see. Where's the button? There's the button. Oh, sorry.
Just briefly on that point. Sorry, just before we jump on to the next question, on that previous point, what you're saying is really tough, and the answer here is, speak to the people above you and say, look, it'd be really helpful to have someone else working on the project. You'll find it'll move a lot quicker. Let's get someone in, or ask for, again, like Randall said, speak to them about getting a consultant in that has the expert knowledge. And paying a small small cost up front to give you that knowledge download that you can then go off and search more topics, which is a ChatGPT is another option there. But generally speaking, coming to places like this and learning from people in the community, engage with the community and ask questions. These are all things that are going to skill you up. But as we said earlier, sorry.
Open source projects. Get involved with an open source project.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a massive advocate. I do a lot of it myself, and it is one of the best ways to learn is to get involved with other projects.
Definitely. All right.
All right. Can you please tell me how to read a set cookie from a response header in Flutter Web? Oh, guess what? We just lost Danielle too. Oh well.
I can tell you.
I did post a couple of links to projects that help with that.
I think if I remember, hang on a minute. You can't, if I remember rightly. You have to do it a different way. Hang on, let me think. So if I remember rightly, when in web, X uses XML HTTP requests, whatever it's called.
XHR.
XHR. That's the initials for it. XML HTTP requests, something like that.
Right.
But basically, it means it's using it's also fetch is another name for it. I think is the standard now. But anyway, the point here is it's in the browser. It means you can like make requests. However, it goes through the browser, which means the browser attaches cookies and other things and does stuff with the request. I think it also means it extracts the cookie, the set headers that come back from the server. Yeah. If it does, you can still access them, but you have to access them through the Dart HTML package. Let me bring this up on the screen here. So when you're building for web, you get Dart. You get all these web packages. Sorry, they're a bit off the screen there, but you get a bunch of web packages. That includes. Let me see if I can. No, that didn't help. All right. That's what you get. Anyway, so there's a bunch of web packages. One of them is Dart HTML, which gives you access to like, the browser's functionality. So like payment events, accessibility nodes, all this stuff is, battery manager, whatever. It's all available for you to use. Normally through the top level window, there's a sort of where is it? Top level window. So there's a global window property, which will give you the window. This is how you normally access in JavaScript. So the question you need to be asking here is, how do I get the set cookie headers and a response in JavaScript? And it's the same in Dart, basically. So you'd be getting back the window object. And I believe there's cookie store on the window object. And in cookie store, you would get all the cookies, and then get all, and you get a map, set a cookie. So yeah, you should be able to call this method, and it will return back a map of all the headers, I guess. So, but if you're curious about what this is or how it works, you can go look up. Basically, the Google search is MDN. That's Mozilla Developer Network. That hosts literally all the good docs on web standards. And as you can see here, cookie store, secure context, feature of only variable in HVS, blah, blah, blah. Browser, store API, yada, yada, yada. And there's a get all. There you go. And this returns a promise, I guess, to get a list of cookies. So then maybe that will help. Alternatively, again, I'm not sure. I feel like I'm right in saying the way that works, because I think it intercepts them for security. But inside of the standard Dart library, standard HTTP library, is also HTTP. There it is, HTTP request. The standard stuff for making HTTP, you can just use the HTTP library, which does this. It wraps this API. But when you make a request, you actually get back a response. So if I can get this. Oh, there you go. Response headers. And the response headers might contain, I say might because I don't know, but it should contain all the headers. I don't know if that means, this is what we were talking about earlier, the standard. I don't know if this actually, you can go look at the standard. Somewhere there should be a index. That's published version. Why don't I see any index? Maybe it's because I'm zoomed in. Nope. Who knows? I'll let you go look this one up. But anyway, it's for the reader. Anyway, but the point here is, unless the W3 standard says it extracts it removes the headers for security, then they're probably in there, and you can access them with just like response.headers, right, or something. So it should be pretty easy to get to that. There you go.
If you're permitted to get to them, you can get to them.
Yeah. So. If not, again, you can get the cookie manager that's inside the browser and actually get them from your instance. It looks to me like it says something about restrictions on if you're SSL. So that could be a problem if you're developing locally. So you can actually do what's called an SSL proxy. ngrok. Is it ngrok? I think it's ngrok. Hang on. Let me post this. Yes, it is ngrok. So ngrok is a service that for developers, let me just bring this up on the screen for those that don't know. Basically, it's a command line that you can run. You can do ngrok, HTTP, whatever your port is. Let's say it's running locally, and then it will basically host it on. If I can I get to the next page? How does this work? I don't know how it works. Anyway, they basically proxy it from your private network and make it publicly available on the internet. But it means that it actually gets publicly available on a public HTTPS facing URL. So immediately you get HTTPS for free. So it's a really nice way temporarily whilst developing to get a HTTPS URL for your local development purposes. So I recommend that. You know.
Actually, the other option is I wrote a package that's actually on PubDev called nginx_le, which basically spools up a Docker package that gets SSL certificate behind an app.
Oh, you're using Let's Encrypt.
Correct.
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Wow, that's really cool. What's the package? Can you
nginx_le? I'll post it. Yeah.
We should have him on every week just to answer what's the pub thing that does this.
What's the package that you need for this?
Having categorized 6,000, I'm probably the world's expert on packages.
I was about to say, after going through that many packages, you get to know this. Oh, there's a package for that. Literally,
how do you tell when a package is dead? I want to know that.
So we've got some stats on it now. We're pulling up in the search interface in terms of trying to measure some of that. They're still fairly basic, but we're trying to improve that to actually pull a number of metrics from the likes of GitHub to try and give you some indication of that.
Awesome.
The problem you've got is some packages don't actually need any changes because they're so simple.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem we're trying to grapple with.
Right? Because that's like a manual thing.
Yeah.
All right. So this is like Nginx LE. So this is Nginx, but just like LE.
It's basically a Dart. It's a Dart wrapper. So there's CLI tools written in Dart that actually will start the Docker container and let you do things like tell it to acquire a certificate and stuff like that. So it just simplifies running Nginx, and then inside the container itself, it's more Dart code that manages Let's Encrypt, so it automatically acquires and reacquires certificates.
Have you looked at a project called Caddy?
Not familiar with it.
Yeah, I would recommend you check out Caddy, Caddy. It's a web browser written in Go, and it was the first one to stick Let's Encrypt in there, and again, same difference. You can run it on your host machine as well.
I originally wrote it because at the time I did it, we couldn't find anything that would actually pull a new cert without having the server go down, like having to do a restart.
Oh, you can do that. No, that's literally what Caddy is designed to do.
Right. Okay. So yeah. Right.
So it's kind of interesting. I'll just bring this up because a lot of people don't know about this, and it's worth knowing. Yeah, Caddy, it's caddyserver.com. I'll post the link in the chat along with the one for Nginx there. Hang on, let me just do a bit of relaying here. Hang on. So yeah, this is Caddy is a web server, and what's really nice about it is it's a single binary. So and cross-platform and Go, and you just download it, and the actual configuration, it was called a Caddy file. You can actually configure it in like one line.
Nice.
So there you go.
Wow.
That's your full configuration file for it. Or you can do stuff like this, respond, and if you want to host files from with browse support, boom, done. It basically takes this kind of like notion of what a web server is and actually simplifies the configuration. Because I tell you what, Nginx, Apache, they're
nightmares.
Sorry?
They're nightmares.
Yeah. And this just honestly, I've loved this for years. I've used it for years. And I actually got my code in there, some of my code's in the project as well. And just like when you want to do a reverse proxy, boom, we're faster done.
Wow.
It's like a few lines. And what's really nice is this works with these are just like their examples, right? But there's actually if I can find it, I don't want to waste everyone's time. It's probably things like
I've got a few instances.
Fast CGI.
I've got a few instances of Nginx that I think I could just get rid of with like one-liner files here now.
Oh yeah, definitely. And what's really nice is it's fully package managed. It's all the package managed and all the rest of it. But yeah, you can like if you want to like simple web server and like host a bunch of stuff and just bring it all together, you can do that with this. But there's tons of modules. So like people have been making third-party modules. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. No, that's the right one. There you go. So you want like metric support and like ngrok tunnel support and blah blah blah. You can go find that's another thing. They actually have a DNS server as well built that you can use as well built in. But
Wow.
But yeah, the authentication, bcrypt, scrypt, Discord, providers forms, and there's like the list goes on and on and on. I won't bore everyone, but if you're trying to do like web servers, I'd say that my first point of call if you're trying to do something is go Caddy.
I'm installing it now. There it is.
To be honest, like dealing with Nginx, I've lost too many hours trying to configure Nginx and Apache. What was the other? There was another one that was quite popular for some time as well. Oh, Tomcat. Oh, don't. Right, we're moving on. Right.
Yeah. Let's not do that.
What's next?
Regarding the typing indicator, how is something like that implemented usually? I guess a WebSocket connection is established, and when both users are in the same chat, or is there another way?
So when you have the chat open, you can make you can either do two things. You can poll the server every few seconds and go, "Is someone typing? Is someone typing?" And when it returns back true, you pop up the thing, and when it returns back false, you hide the thing. I mean, I've seen people do that. But the thing is, it's only on the screen whilst it's only connected and doing that polling when the view is on the screen. So, it's not ideal. Like there's overhead on each connection, but it's possible. There's also what's called long poll, which is when you open up one connection and it returns back events as they take place, like WebSockets, like push. And there's actually a standard for it called event source, long poll event source. Let me...
long poll's been mostly replaced by WebSockets, though, right?
Yeah, it has. But I mean, it all depends on what you do. So again, there's another thing like HTTP3 has server-side push as part of the protocol. Literally, you could just send stuff down to the client without it requesting anything. So all these things are coming. But yeah, the problem I'm going to say is people don't understand enough about WebSockets. Right. Let me be clear, just about a few points. A HTTP request, like you make an API request, you make the request, you get the response, and it closes. It will stay, the connection stays open, it reuses it, blah, blah, blah. But the point here is it's a one-to-one relationship there, right? You make the request, you get the response, you make the request, you get the response. A WebSocket is a consistently open connection. You need to manage that on the client side and close it correctly. Right, otherwise you're going to get you can just what
Flutter 3.13 just dropped.
Okay, well I have to obviously jump on that. We'll jump on that in a second. All right, right when people are asking about it. We'll go for the announcement in a minute. So anyway, what was I going to say? Damn it, you got me off track.
Number of connections. You got to manage connections with WebSockets or long polling.
Right. Yeah. So with WebSockets, you're maintaining a connection to the server. There is a limited number of connections you can make to a server at any one time, and it doesn't matter if your server was terabytes of storage and terabytes of memory. It's actually one of designed by the internet. So that is, there's 65,535 or 16 bits worth of ports available to each IP address. And you can get port exhaustion, and basically it's like denial of service, right, on your server, right? It will run out of ports available to communicate on. Now that's tough to actually get into. If you get like slash dotted or something, you get a huge amount of traffic with WebSockets, you can reach that limit before you realize it, right? So you need to make sure that if you do WebSockets, you understand that this problem exists and you deal with it correctly. Now, if you put something in front of your WebSockets, that is, if you use something like Apogee or one of these API serving services in cloud, they offer WebSocket proxying essentially, then they fix that problem. You don't even have to think about it, more or less, right? But the gist of it is, if you can scale on the back end and you're doing cloud properly, then that's not a problem. But yeah, for most apps, WebSockets in a small, you're talking about concurrent users, by the way. So you could have 1 million users in your database, but if only 10 people connect at one time, that's 10 WebSockets, right? So again, you can have a pool of IP addresses and you get more ports. There's other ways around this. It's a known problem. You can go read up about it. But just want to explain to people, it will trip you up if you're not careful. So doing stuff like just polling is quite adequate to and it means that you're essentially sharing the bandwidth, right, of the ports and so on of the server whilst it's happening.
Perhaps worth just throwing in there, the actual number of ports available is actually far less than 65,000.
I was going to say, I didn't want to like push to too much detail, but yeah.
Well, the other thing that worth putting in here, though, even if you're doing the polling where you actually bringing a socket up and dropping it down, is that there is a wait time after you close a socket before it's available for reuse. So even though you think you're using well less than that, you may actually hit those limits anyway.
Yeah. There's also, and to be clear, there's also in the HTTP library, it does connection reuse. The connection itself is not discarded immediately because HTTP 1.1 allows the connection to be more requests to be sent over the same connection. And then even we get to HTTP 2, it's another thing entirely. But for the most part, you want to forget about the transit and just do what you want to do on the app sending, just make the request and magically it works. From Appland, as it were. But so when it comes to WebSockets, the actual ports that's available, the bottom 1024 reserved, full stop, and then there's like a top, I think it's above like 50,000 something you end up not using either for various reasons. Some operating systems reserve some ports for internal use and other things like that. So practically, there's also a practical limit there to exactly how many you can use. For the most part, the point here is that you have a limit, and the limit is not as large as you think. It's not something you can't get 1 million people connected to your one server. It doesn't matter how much processing power you have, basically. All right, moving on. Unless anyone's got anything to add to that.
And Flutter 3.13 includes Dart 3.1, which has the inline classes.
We'll get there. Let's get these last couple of questions. No more questions. We'll get the last couple of questions, and then we'll jump.
Let's go. What are the procedures to convert native wrapper plugins to the Dart SDK, which will be platform independent?
Okay, that's basically what we said earlier, right? Yeah. So this was a follow up to the question we had around how to was it Razor Pay? I think it was Razor Pay. How to like wrap these native I've got hiccups now. Libraries. So let me bring this up on the stream here. This is practically a question we answer every stream, but it's fine. Let's see. There we go. So you go to flutter.dev, you click on docs, and on the left, if I can find it, packages and plugins, developing packages and plugins, and there's a lovely guide. And you run Flutter create template package, and that's for a package you want to plug in. Developing package plugins, federated plugins. There's actually a template called plugin, which actually generates a bunch of this code for you. I think it shows you it down here. There you go, template plugin. So Flutter create, you give it your package and template plugin, what platforms you want to support or can support, shall we say. And then this walks you through it. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that's used in packages. Where are we? Flutter favorites package repository. Platform integration is the other side of this as well. So you've got 1 second. Sorry. So there's guides online for working with Android here, and where was it? Writing platform specific code. That's the bit you want to read, which talks about like how this whole thing works with method channels, and then also what the types are. So what you see in Dart versus what you see in, let's say, C++ or Swift or whatever language you're in, and how calling those works. But it's all documented on the website. You just need to go looking for it, and it's there.
Yeah, look, if you look up Pigeon, is one of the main frameworks for doing the channel stuff. I must say, I'm a big fan. FFI's come a long way just in recent times as well. So I've had a couple of cracks at actually avoiding the channel stuff completely and going directly FFI to different platforms. That way you don't have to do any Swift or Objective-C or Java. You can just talk to the native APIs directly, and you get 100%.
It all depends on like the JNI package, for example, is brilliant for that. Like suddenly I was doing some stuff in Android. I was like, well, I just go direct with FFI and just throw method channels out the way, and we don't even need that. But sorry, but yeah, the real, should we say, the real question here that was originally asked was, how do you wrap those native libraries of Android and iOS? And for the most part, you need to, if you want to learn about it, do it that way. And as was said, there's a package called Pidgin. Pidgin is developed by the Flutter team, and they're actually using it now in Firebase going forward, the official Firebase plugins. And Pidgin generates that sort of plugin code, so all that boilerplate that we're just looking at and everything else, it kind of generates it for you. But again, you need to understand the process. You can't just like dive in and go, make this code for me. It just doesn't work that way, right? So, but it's always worth knowing how plugins are made and how you make them. To be clear, packages are different from plugins. Packages are considered Dart code only, where plugins have native code attached to them. That's the kind of difference in terminology, if anyone's wondering. But plugins are also packages. If that makes sense. So, right. Next. Final one. Final question.
Yes. What screen? There we go. Okay. Yes. Nope. Sorry, I hit it there. When we create the model and use for parsing JSON, does the app increase memory usage? Oh, why are you guys worrying about this? And when the app handles the clear model action, or do we have to handle it manually? How many bytes are you worried about? I don't know. This seems like a slightly premature optimizing question.
I mean, so when we create a model and use it for parsing JSON, does the app increase memory usage when the app handle the clear model action, or when we handle it manually, or we have to handle it manually? Okay, this is just standard. It's a memory managed garbage collected language. It allocates memory when you need it, and it frees it when you don't use it. That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing you need to think about here. And it will increase the memory usage when required, and it will free the memory when it doesn't need it anymore. That simple. Ready?
Yeah. I don't get that there's anything we really have to worry about here.
I mean, there's a bunch of stuff around it, but you can go read up about the Dart garbage collector and how it works if you want to, but I don't think you even remotely need to know about it, right? Like, yeah.
I mean, are you running on a Raspberry Pi? Is this your concern? I don't understand.
I mean, it's a valid concern if you're on a Raspberry Pi, right?
Right. So. Yeah. Anyway, it uses what it needs, I think, is the answer, and it gets rid of it as it needs. So, yeah.
I guess the only time I would be thinking about these sort of questions if I'm parsing a very large amount of data. You can cause your GC to thrash if you're allocating lots of small objects, reallocating them, causing mem copies. But if the typical application, you tend not to parse a huge amount of JSON if you're doing a request to fill a list, and so it's really not something, as the guys are saying, you'd normally have to worry about.
I say even then that kind of parsing it's not as bad as it is in other languages because of Dart's garbage collector with Young Space Scavenger. It does is like what you call it, it has a buckets for various size objects so that the memory can be easily be used without having to do memory compaction. So fragmentation. So you don't get fragmentation of memory and having to do compaction to gain the memory back, or essentially running out of memory because you have no one contiguous amount of memory that can store the amount that you allocate. Anyway, it doesn't matter, GC stuff, but it's pretty cool. The other thing to mention here is you can also do stream parsing. So if you did have a large amount of JSON objects, you can actually, as an object is passed from the stream, you can actually pass that model out and load it as is. So you're never actually doing this kind of analyze the entirety of some JSON model into a map, sort of the map list basic sort of set of objects, and then converting that again into another set of objects. You can go from A to B and do JSON stream parsing. So far, there's not been some good libraries out there in Dart to do this, and I've been meaning to make one. But yeah, when I have the time. But you can do it yourself. It's not too difficult. It's been around for a long time, and it does mean that you can efficiently, like, if there's certain data that you don't need to load, you can just skip it, right? Like you just skip that part of the stream. You don't even need it. And therefore there's no sort of unnecessary object allocation. But again, you're talking about very large data streams. I mean, yeah, when an object's loaded in memory, you're talking about kilobytes maximum, right? Like, well, not maximum, but I don't think any. I'm trying to think now. You have 64 bytes minimum for an object reference, and I think it's more like 256 bytes. I think for somewhere around that sort of number for like your basic object with a constructor. It's not like a lot of memory. It's mainly just references. The amount of memory, because remember the class reference and the class description, which you build when you define class, that's stored once in memory, and then the actual object instantiation of an object refers to that, right? So when you build multiple copies, just to be clear to the audience, when you make multiple instances of an object, you're not making duplicates of all the code. Does that kind of make sense? Your code exists once in your app, and you have these little objects that refer to that code. So when you call a I don't know, increment on an integer of your instance, the instance member variable lives in that object, in the instance of that object, not in the class, right? Hopefully that kind of maybe clears it up a bit. But the point here is that you would have to get either small number of very large objects like bitmaps and things like that take up a lot of space, or videos, or a hell of a lot of small objects to kind of get near the memory limits that you would cause your app to like die. And even then, most platforms offer a way to get more memory. So when your application, things like gallery applications on mobile, and where they have to load large images or sections of large images that may be like, if you unpack like some of these JPEG pictures taken on the camera, they easily are like 100 megabytes raw, right? And it's like one image, 100 megabytes raw. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but like a JPEG is compressed, so it might be like 2 megabytes, 4 megabytes on disk. But as soon as you inflate that into the raw red, green, blue bitmap that you actually need to display, suddenly it goes from being 4 megabytes to being 100 megabytes very easily. Probably more like 16 meg to 100 meg, but anyway, you're going to get there. So, you can on Android, for example, there's request large heap, I think it is, or large heap. You can just put that on your application in the manifest, and you'll get more memory from the operating system, because you've been nice and said, okay, I'm going to need more memory for my application. But yeah, use it sparingly, because if everyone does that, then everyone gets less amount of memory to share, right? So, alrighty then. Did you have something you want to bring up on this Dart version? Because I've got no official. I looked on the official mediums and I can't see any official announcements. So
I've just checked in, and the inline classes is not enabled. It's still behind an experiment, so that's not yet dropped. And there are no notes yet. I'm looking on the Flutter official Discord, not the Flutter community Discord. I'm looking on the Flutter official Discord, and there's no announcement even there yet, which is usually pretty close to when the announcement gets made.
During the stream, they're preparing it. They're
setting that all up. But so they push the Git already, but now all of a sudden it's like let's chase behind.
This is always
what this is.
When you develop in the open, you can't hide anything.
Yeah, so we've all installed it. We've running code with it already. I've already updated all my globals already. So it's like, I'm done. But, it's not going to be, I have no information on it. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, anyway.
People are asking what's inline. What's inline classes? Go on. You can explain this whilst I quickly get things set up.
Okay. So it coming up real soon now. Thought it was today with the Dart 3.1 dropping, but coming up real soon, you'll be able to do a lightweight class wrapper. So the example they give all the time is, suppose you want something that acts for all intention like an integer, but you want it to be a separate type, so called ID, so that if something is an ID, it acts just like an integer, but it has a separate type for it. A type alias with typedef doesn't do that. It just says this is also an integer. And that's sort of the way we got away with it before, where it was just for documentation purposes. We'd say typedef ID equals int. But now you can actually put a wrapper around it that is a class, and the class can introduce methods. So this is like extensions, but coming at it from the other angle. This is extensions where you're basically saying, I have an int as my sole entry. All the methods that are calling on me get called onto this int that I'm holding. And there's not really anything you're holding. It's really all the same object, but it has this extra wrapper around the side so that you can add additional methods.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, it's basically extension class is the other name for it now. In fact, they moved it to that.
Is this like a proxy for the inner class, but you don't actually have to implement all the proxy methods manually?
Exactly like that. Yes. If that cleared it up for anybody, thank you. I don't know that actually helped all that much, but okay. Yes. So it's basically a way to wrap with no cost, because since this happens at compile time, all the methods are still being called on the object. There's no one-step hop like there would be if it was all proxy methods. So it's a way of adding behavior and adding a distinct class identity to something that we wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, it'll solve some problems. It'll make some problems harder, as usual.
All right.
So,
are we ready to rock and roll?
Yeah. Let's do some live coding.
I know it's late there for you, Brett. So feel free to drop off at any time if you need to. Don't feel pressured to stay or anything like that.
Or just keep drinking. Either way, you can keep drinking.
Yeah.
I can't leave until my beers are done. So
okay.
Okay, stick around. It's fine.
That is definitely the right excuse right there.
There we go.
All right, so we'll try and say maybe do this the same as we did before. I wonder if I can actually arrange this in any sort of way. I can drag the tab out. Can I? Does that help? No. All right, well, I'll make this taller. That means at least you can see some of it if I did bring it up. All right, we'll hide that. So, online, there's a few things that came up. So we had someone was asking how we do this effect. So I'm going to make this full screen, and we'll see if we can see this effect. So it's in the top right. It's the numbers up here you want to be paying attention to. So the idea is the person's dragging this cursor over the chart, and the value of this point on the chart is represented by the number above the chart. So we're doing some live coding, by the way, people, if you want to know what we're jumping into. Sorry, so I'm going to jump into it. And you can see this kind of like really cool like counter effect that's taking place. And I think the questions basically were, how can we do this in Flutter, basically? So I'm kind of curious myself, to be honest. So I think, first of all, we need to analyze what is this doing and how is it working, right? So let's skip in. And I'm going to frame by frame this, and we're going to see how it behaves. So, all right, well, there you go. Look. So first of all, our 2 is getting smaller. And as they shrink down, they're blurring. And then
our first question already, which is using a shader good here, maybe?
Yes and no. So a shader is great for controlling pixels. So we couldn't render, for example, you couldn't render the numbers in this, right? Because a shader doesn't know the shape of the font. It doesn't know the information. However, it can take what we would normally paint as a letter 7 and then apply some effect to it, right? There's a very difference between, this is like the difference between fragment shaders and geometry shaders and a bunch of other stuff. I won't go into it right now. We're probably going to do this without shaders though, because you get some of this stuff for free, and we're going to get through it. So I'll explain what I mean in a minute. But let's see what else. I'm going to step frame this and see what. So he's going to click further down, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to. Is this go next frame? Yeah. Okay. I think there's just a lot of frames here for pausing. Hang on. Let's get. Oh, there we go. All right. He's moving down. Here we go. Too far. I want to see this from the beginning just to see what the full action is. So again, let's see. Okay, so the letter shrinks. It kind of angles down. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like if it was like a tumbler lock, right? So something like that, where it's kind of like angling down as it shrinks, which is not too dissimilar from what the standard one does. I'm going to ignore the blur for a minute. I'll tell you why. Because first of all, that is correct from the shaded point of view. We could add the blur as later. But also, I have a feeling that you're probably going to experience the blur because of how quickly it happens. At 60 FPS, quickly changing something, it blurs. Like, you're not going to notice the difference. And it's the same thing. I'll explain. If you're on a desktop, you've got a mouse in front of you. If you move the mouse can only ever exist in one position on the screen at any one time. Suddenly, magically, when you move your mouse on your screen, you might see it in 4 different places. And that's persistence of vision. That's just the way that the screen refreshes and the way that your eye works. And it's the same thing here. When you see those numbers ticking around, you're going to get that kind of blurring effect naturally because of how quickly it's moving. All right. So the new numbers come in and down. Let's see if I'm slowly going to go through because we need to analyze this to understand. This is, by the way, from Swift UI, some numbers, automatic numbers, content thing. Oh, I've missed it again. Oh, that's okay. Let's go step frame it. All right. So when you go, it's going up in value. So it just seems to me like all it's doing here is changing from one value to another, and then the previous value gets shifted up, and depending on if it's a higher or lower value, right? The previous value goes away and the new value comes in. Let's see if, and I think if you're dragging and you're doing this quick enough, I think the question is what do you do from an intermediate state when you're like already, animating between 2 states? What is your expected result? Which I think happens here. So let's see. Let's go for. Sorry, this is very, very difficult. All right, so here we go. So 65, 62, 69. So look, those numbers at the beginning. That's kind of interesting, right? So the higher the value, the higher the decimal point, the higher the decimal value, digit position. Sorry, the faster it's going to change, right? So sorry. Does that make sense?
Should change slower.
Because it's kind of, if you're trying to, sorry,
the major digits should be changing more slowly in theory. If the minor,
that's what I'm trying to think. Like if you're trying to go through, if you're trying to like animate all the possible values, this just doesn't happen, right? Like that's junk, right? However, you can simulate that, right? And you can simulate that by moving some of the digits slower than others, and you'll have the same feeling as if it's transitioning through a whole set. Because some move slower than others, right? I think that's what I think it's doing here. Because that bottom digit is just changing on one frame to frame. It's just changing instantly, right? Where the other ones haven't really moved at all, right? Like they're just jumping, right, from one to the other. Where the top ones are hardly changing at all. Because each one of those numbers that you go through is going to have a different decimal position, right? So we're it's a value, whatever, a fractional value. All right, cool. And then essentially that's what it's doing. Don't think this is, don't get me wrong, this is not an easy build, but it's also an interesting one, right? Like
it's interesting because it seems like the first digit actually, it's the middle ones that seem to be blurred the most rather than the beginning or the end ones. It doesn't seem to actually be completely tied to the position of the digit.
Maybe they're doing it. Maybe there's a persistence here on a per digit basis. So, because if you're going from like, let's say from a thousands unit to a tens of thousands value, then you're gaining an extra digit magically, which means that's coming from nothing to something. So it feels like it's coming in immediately. Does that kind of make sense? I don't know. So look, when you like, here's an example. When it drags up 2,000, 1,600, it's just, if you just tap, then it's like an instant rollover and change. And if you drag, you're kind of getting a different effect entirely. Almost. I like the idea of just doing this tap effect at least initially, and then going into this drag one. I feel like there's something to this. I'm just dragging back. I'm just trying to see this. It's very cool. I do like it. Perfect for like a money-based application for sure. I don't know if I'd see this working in other places. Maybe timetables, train timetables, or something like that. It might be interesting to maybe have the time tick over, but it's definitely not something you would put on all your numbers, right? Like they have to change and change frequently. Okay, so that's so the question is, well, let's get started on this, I guess. So let's bring that animation over here just so we've got a reference point. I don't have a way of cropping that down on the stream, I'm afraid, so we're going to keep it there. I've got a Flutter desktop app operating up here at the top. Give me 1 second here. I'll see if I can bear with.
Yeah, I didn't find a source for data for you. Sorry.
No worries. We can make it work. I think I can make.
Actually, if you do a Google Sheet, you can do AI in there now. You can say fill it with stock prices or something.
Really?
I think. I'm told you can do that now. I keep getting told things about things that happen in Google workspaces, but I don't pay attention much to those. It's not my area. My area is Dart and Flutter.
Sorry, everyone. Just bear with me a second. I'll try and make the. For some reason, I can't make the Flutter desktop window stay on top. So no, you don't get that feature, I'm afraid. Let me jump back into the screen. So I had to turn off the screen share to make the changes. I was hoping I could make the this screen stay on top of the video, but you don't get that. So, and this is just a little test project. We'll publish the code like we did with the focus ring and segment selector. Was it last week? I can't remember. A week before. All right, so let's just. I guess we'll just get started. So we have a black screen.
I asked Bard how to do it with Google Sheets, and it gave me a way to do that. You can go into a Google Sheet and type this function. Google Finance, Google Price, date.
I think what.
Anyway, you can do that. So it's possible.
I think let's just let. I mean, we don't. I'm not here. Are people interested in how you render the chart? And I'm not here to really render the chart. What I can just do is just do a.
Oh, okay. We'll see that for next week, and then we'll do this for now.
I feel like I'll do. We still need something that's like that can feel the same. So we still need to have manual control. So I think we could have a point, a point that we move across a line, and then just keep that as like our use case, and have a number widget separate, right? So I guess that's maybe our starting point, right? Are people interested in this? I mean, like there was a couple of other options here, like a sort of a really cool tab bar or a bottom sheet, an animated bottom sheet. There's a couple of other little things we had going. Let's see how we go. I feel like people are interested in this numbers thing, and I don't know. Just use a slider for the number. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna say yes and no, Mike. Let me make a quick thing here because I've got a slightly different way I want to do that. There's a practical purpose to that because I feel like it'd be. All right, let's go with the slider for initially and see if we need to change it. That's good. That's a good plan. Right. So we need to keep track of our value. So value is 0 to begin with, I guess, and we want a piece of material, which it will dislike very much if I don't put material app in. This gives us a little surface without having to think too much about how we're doing that. We'll also say, just do some basics here. All right, so let's restart. Just give us gray. Wonderful. Let's give us black. It's like darker. Yeah. All right, and we want on our piece of material. Let's do a column. Inside our column, we want I guess, I have a text that shows the value for the moment. And we'll put a style, make it quite large. I don't know if there's was it visual density, isn't it? Is that on here? Can we? It's the theme, I think, actually. Isn't there like I feel like there was added a font scale delta or something somewhere. So I just want to see if there's like a nice way I can just scale everything. Whatever. Right, let's just move on. Font size 32. Huge. And let's do a big number here, 124. And I guess we probably want to format this in actually a slightly different way, and say we want 2 fixed, 2, something like that. Save. Restart. Okay, cool. Let's make that bigger and bolder, right? Because bigger and bolder is better.
Yep. Always.
And let's go even bigger.
Embiggen. You've got to get an odometer font too, so that makes sure. Oh, you also make sure that they're all the same width.
No, we can actually do that. So here's the trick. People ask me about this as well. It's font feature.
Table numbering something.
Font feature, tabular fonts.
Tabular fonts.
Tabular figures. That's the one. Tabular figures.
Yep.
And that's how. That's basically saying I want the numbers to be represented by monospaced stuff, and then monospaced glyphs, and then it magically does all that stuff for you. You don't have the problem of them like jigging around as they change their sizes.
Yes. Yes.
Right, and we'll have a slider.
Had to learn that for a client's app. So yeah.
Sure. Okay, so value. Cool. Unchanged, I guess, and then min 0, max. I don't know. The problem is I want this to be a logarithmic curve, and there's going to be linear on the slider. I want there to be some sort of curve to this. I feel like we could plot. We could do one, like a slider that's 0 to 1, and then take this value and plot it through. We did explain, train of thought, what tabular figures does. It keeps the figures the same size spaced.
I'm answering it.
It's in the docs as well. It explains it all in the docs up here. Fonts have to be proportional, varying width, and tabular figures enabled. Tabular figures, blah blah, monospace, blah blah blah.
And yes, there are other font features. Yes. Go look them up. They're in there.
Right. So what I'm thinking is we could put the slider result through a curve, which means we can kind of get that kind of gauge. Let's do something simple for a minute.
Let's take a cosine of it.
Sorry?
Like a cosine of it, would that work?
Yeah, I was thinking about, like, we've actually got curve. We actually have the decelerate curve and things like that we can actually plot through. Let's have a quick look. Because if we plot, I feel like if we plot the values as well, visually we could have like a little plot where you're actually seeing it move. That's more my original thought, which means we're not using a slider, right? Hang on, let me just bring this up. So I was saying that this curves, we could visually show something, one of these curves on the screen, right? And actually you're moving the thumb around the curve. So if we wanted to, we could experiment. It's just a nice way of not having any data, but still being able to plot something on the screen. I think we'll just linearly do it like this for now, and then let's get it working first, step by step. This is the way to do it, step by step. New value. too often people, I think, as an intermediate sort of level developer, you have this kind of notion that you need to think about the entire solution up front. I don't think that's like you kind of grow out of that and realize that you can't think of every possibility up front. You end up refactoring it anyway. So normally the case is like almost write a book, get something started, and then you refactor along the way, and then that's kind of like a nice way of putting something together. All right,
it's great advice, Simon.
0. It's done already. See, you don't need who needs that. All right,
done.
We're done now. That's it. Ship it.
Yep, ship it.
I mean, this is totally like there's no like good reason to do this. Like it's just a nice visual thing to do, right? It has zero impact on performance or how things should behave, but we'll give it a go. So
there might be a difference in terms of the line when it jumps numbers. When you're going through a smooth line, then the transition across the digits is smooth. I'm wondering whether when you jump between big numbers,
if we had a curve, then the change can be more abrupt, right? But I see what you're saying. If you were going from like 20 to 100, but I could still click on like here and click here, right?
But there's no animation then, which is what they're
No, we can do an animation. That's what the original one does, an animation for that. When he taps, it does actually animate and jump between the two numbers.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. Just the solution we have now doesn't do an animation when you jump between large numbers variants.
Oh yeah. So this is what we want to do. So we want to add like some nicer animations to this. So I guess the question here is, what do we do next? So I think the first thing is we know we need to render this ourselves. So a text widget doesn't cut it, right? That's what we know. This much we know. Yeah, so I'm just reading the comments there. All right, so let's take that as our next step. So we need a way of rendering this. So I guess first impressions is if we do text, do something like I guess we could lift this widget out first of all, so we can get rid of that. So we'll call this what? What do you want to rolling number display? No, it sounds good enough. And then we'll want a value that we want to show. Yeah. And then I guess we'll also put over a font style. It feels like any parameters anyone else thinks we need? I don't know. Sounds good enough. All right. So rolling font, chuck that in there. Value, and style. Let's bring over the style. Cool. So that lifts it out. So now we're doing it. We can get rid of all this stuff here. We don't need to concentrate on how we're rolling value. We now just can concentrate on the display. And if we pop this in here, we should get back the exact same thing, right? Because we just lifted it out, basically. Oops, style. All right, let's restart. And exactly the same. Good. We haven't broken anything. Next step. Let's make this. Let's paint the text first, right? So to do custom painting and drawing, you need a painter. Now you can do a custom render object, and to be honest, a custom render object would definitely be like the eventual goal. But going directly at the root of a custom render object is just going to make your life more difficult when you're developing it, right? So make it stupid, make it work, and then optimize, right? That's the key, right? So right now, let's go for a painter. So we'll have this as rolling number painter extends custom painter. Painter is a custom painter is a delegate for a custom paint widget, for those that don't know. And we'll now put in here a custom paint widget, and this wants a painter instance. It also wants to, we have our first complex problem here, actually. So a painter, how does it get the size is the question. How does it get the size of what it needs to be? I don't believe it has a callback for this, but I'm going to check because it's been a while since I looked at what options are available. Yeah, I didn't think so. It has hit test, paint.
I just give it a child that's a certain size, and then just paint.
This is the problem
on that.
If your number is 3 digits long, it's going to be one size. As if it's 20, 20 digits, a completely different size. So if we really want to be correct about this, we actually need to know how big the text is going to be on the screen.
Text painter.
Right.
Text painter.
This is the way.
Text painter time.
If anyone doesn't get the reference, you need to go watch some Star Wars. Right. Anyway, so I think the what we can do right now is give ourselves a fixed size, and knowing that we need to come back and fix this problem, I can tell you how we can fix it briefly, and that is, if we're to do it at the widget level, what we're doing right now, then you need to lift out the size. So basically, the painter, when it actually renders the paint, it knows the size. It then pushes that back up to like a value notifier. That value notifier is listened to by the widget level, and then the widget level rebuilds the widget with the right size. It's a bit of back and forth, and that's the only reason we need to do that is because we're doing the painter at the widget build level, not at the render object level. As soon as we take this and make it a render object, that problem's gone. So there's no point us dealing with it right now because we're not even going to have that problem later. So let's give ourselves a fixed size. How big are we at the moment is the question, I guess. We can use the inspector for that, can't we? Inspect said widget and see how big it is. It reports, let's make it bigger. Let's make it all out to the largest number and refresh. Is that refresh? Refresh. All right, 270 by 103. So let's put that in here. 270 by, say, 108. 108, 100. I don't know.
Round them up. 300 by 200.
Let's see. So size, custom painter, bomb. Now we're not returning that just yet. So now what we need to do is say, okay, how do we render this? How do we render this value? So let's pull the value across. To be clear, I just want to also talk about this briefly. People look at this and go, oh my God, look at the amount of code that you need to do in Swift. It's one line. Well, Swift's done this code. It's in a library, right? If you go use the animate package, you can use one line to do a bunch of things. The point is, these are libraries. These things exist, right? So take this, put it in a library, and everyone gets the benefit. And that's the kind of thing that we do, right? And there's no reason why it couldn't be, these things go straight into the framework if you want to PR it and they want to accept it. Who knows? Right, moving forward. Right. So we need a constructor to pass in the value so we know what we need to paint. We could do our conversion to a string in here, actually, right? Like, do we care if a digit is higher? We might do. I guess if it's a higher value, it rolls up. Or does it roll down? That's a question. That's a good question. I think when we were looking at this, so that comes up from the bottom.
Which seems counterintuitive.
Sorry, it seems counterintuitive.
It seems back to front. It feels like large numbers should come from the top and small numbers from the bottom.
I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't flip the behavior, right? Maybe it's one of those things where it's like it's backwards because of the kind of illusion that it gives, right? Like to the eye, it actually appears better that way, right? But anyway, let's get to this. Right. So we do need to convert it to a string at some point so we can extract the digits out of it. However, we could actually do that ourselves. And I'm thinking, do we care about the total value that we're receiving being higher or lower, or do we care about the individual digits value being higher or lower as to which way it scrolls, which way it rotates? And that's what I'm kind of curious about right now is let me see if I can kind of get this. Yeah, so some values can go down and some can go up, right? Like it's each position that rolls. Am I right in seeing that? I think so. Kind of hard to see with some of the number changes that are taking place, but 2 to 4. Hang on. Go back a bit. 5. 1.
Does it roll downward from 8 to 0 or so when it rolls?
Well, this is
up
what I'm trying to work out
digit?
here. Like it.
That seems odd.
Like each individual digit can roll if it changes, of course, right? But do you ever see one going up as others go down? Is the question, and it's hard to spot.
Well, I think if you compute where the digit position should be at 60 times a second,
oh
then
yeah,
just show that digit. So
well, that's what I'm thinking. Like it's always going to be per digit when we display it, right? But
yeah,
when it comes to like the direction of roll, is that just based on this value versus the previous value? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I don't think you need to decide a roll direction. I think you only need to have that this digit's going to be part of the way up, and then maybe the same digit's going to be further up, or it's a next digit entirely, and that's going to be down below. If you're rolling fast enough, that's going to make the big blur.
Yeah,
I think you compute a snapshot at a time.
Yeah, let's just get somewhere, and then we can experiment and see where we go, right? Otherwise, we're guessing too much. I literally just said we fell into the same sort of problem, right? So let's do text is this. Let's pass the value over. We'll pass. We want to pass the style level. All right. So yeah, let's nuke this and return the custom paint, and then so when you want to paint text, funny enough, there's a thing called a text painter, and that's the magical thing that actually draws the text. It does ask for quite a few parameters, and we need to work into what these are and what we want to do. I think we can get away with not adding all of these right now. There's certain ones we're going to want though. So let's see. We're going to ignore most of those, I think. And this is not a text, it's a text span, and our initial text span has the text and the style. Okay. And so text should be fine. Oh, it's not content one. It's style. I thought Randall, you just said you're 77. When I just looked at the chat, you mean you were coding in 77?
Yeah.
You might want to
say I was 77. I said in 77.
No, I know.
I can see a quick glance. Stop glancing at the chat. I'm taking care of it. Don't worry about the chat. I'm looking for stuff.
Okay, so let's see. Style. All right. So so now we're at the point. So we're returning back a custom painter, pushing the values forwards, giving it a size. Now we're doing the fun stuff of painting. We should repaint when our value changes. So when value does not equal old delegate dot value. Now that is call this covariant, meaning that we need to replace our specific type with the variant type, which is the sort of subclass. And now we have a painter. It's very important we do layout and painter paint canvas and then the offset on the canvas, offset. So this is our X and Y position. Now, this is the baseline position. So we actually need to know from the painter the text metrics. I'm trying to remember how we get those. I feel like there's a getter. I've seen it. The one time I want it, I can't see it or something. Compute line metrics. Get distance to actual baseline. One of those two should do it. Let's do compute line metrics. I mean, for the moment, let's just hard code a value in there and see what we get to. What's our font size? 32. So let's do 16. 32. No, it's more than that. Actually, we can get that from the size. That's probably an easy, nice style. We've got font size divided by 2. It's not ideal and definitely not correct because we don't see it. This could be correct actually. So do we say it's white? So let me be clear about what I think the problem here is. So part of when you display, we're using a text widget and you have a style like this, is that it actually merges the style with a default text style coming down the tree. If you go look at the text widget, that's literally its only job to do that. Here, we actually just use the style in full. So either we need to make that adjustment ourselves and merge it, or we need to specify size and other parameters that we might need on the text style to fill it out completely. So, I mean, I can go look at this. There might be a rendering issue in here. Where are we? Ignore that. Yeah, text direction. I need to go put that in there, basically. But we still need to do this. So, let's do default text style equal default text style dot of context. And once you get your default text style, it has many of those parameters we're just looking at, like max lines and stuff. The one we really care about is our text style, and then you can do a merge with another style, and that's the style that we passed in. And that is the actual style that we want to represent us. And that way it gets the style, the color from the theme and all that kind of jazz. All right, so that's one thing. And then it's saying that we don't have a text direction. Again, same problem. You can, I believe, pass a null still. Maybe not. No, I'm thinking about, so I'm thinking directionality widget, sorry. Text decoration, no, direction. Again, you know, we can come back and do this a bit proper, where we can actually go fetch it from the context and all that. Let's just get it working. Okay, look at that. So you can already see how that's different. We're aligning to the left, so we get this kind of jumping effect. That's fine. And we have a fixed size, so it doesn't center, right? But that's fine. Let's align to the right. And now, oh, we still get that. Oh yeah, because it's not just this line. This alignment literally doesn't matter because it's not multi-line. It's this. So what we actually need to do is to render this in the right position. We need to take the X and say, what is our X? We want to take the size of our canvas, width minus the painter's laid out size, right, in width. So this way it's always aligned to the right of our canvas. Make sense? Clear as mud. All right, let's move again, and all the way up, and all the way down. Look at that. Oh, that's cool. Actually, I like that. That actually is really cool. Actually, like the point stays the same, and the rest of the numbers change. Just that alone actually is pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. Ship it.
Ship it.
You can't. I must say at this point, I'm offended you haven't used my Money2 package to format it as a monetary amount. But hey, keep going. Keep going.
Right. So, all right. So, what is next on that? So we can now render the text ourselves. That's great. Now, the problem here is what we're doing with a text painter and doing layout and paint like this is that we're actually saying what's called text shaping or paragraph shaping is saying, given this piece of text, now it's not just a number, it could be any like paragraph of text, shape this text, do all the line breaks and everything, which is like a complex algorithm that takes time, but we don't care about that. We know we're never going to need that. But what we do care about is we want to paint the decimal digits 0 to 9. That's it, and a full stop, right? So what we want to do is actually paint the text, but then use that text. I mean, there's different ways of doing this, right? I'm going down the rabbit hole here, so let's have a think about this. I could definitely just use the text painter multiple times, and I doubt we'd see too much of a performance problem because we're limited number of characters, right? But there's a lot of overhead that we're causing the platform to go through to render the 6 characters on the screen, right? When we definitely know it doesn't need to do anything of the sort. Like all that alignment, all the text direction, like none of that like even comes into what we're trying to do, right? So we know that they're fixed sizes and monospaced size. So we could calculate up front the size of one character based on this text style, and then use that to position the rest on the screen and paint them character by character. Normally that's kind of where you want to go with this eventually. Maybe we don't want to do that right now. It's 313 drop now in Medium article.
Yep.
All right. Well, I have to take a look at that in a minute.
Right. It's long too. It's page after page. It's huge. Right. Lots of stuff changed.
Thanks.
We'll have to go through it.
Really helpful.
Okay.
Right. All right. So I think the key is that we want to animate digit by digit. We need to manage some state for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels to me like probably what we want to be doing is, well, that's a good question. So let me explain what I'm thinking about here, my thought process. So we need to maintain there's definitely lots of ways of doing this. If we want to use the built-in animation framework, there's probably we're going down to the per character level. So we probably want to just pull out what we're doing right now and push it down one more level and have either a widget per character. I think that's probably where we're going here. And then each digit that's displayed then has its own animator, its own animation controller, and various other things. And since they're siblings in the same row, they get to reuse their previous values, and we can actually use that to our advantage. So that to say that a value's gone higher or lower. All right, let's give that a go. All right, so lovely. We got some text displaying. If we do it that way, we can make it. Okay, here's the thing: we can make this pretty dumb, and it would be pretty ill-performing to use like lots of these on the same sort of screen. However, we can definitely soup this up, right? So we can definitely make this so that it's more optimal. But going down the optimized route at the very beginning is going to take us longer, and I'd rather get this done soon. So let's make it dumb and then go from there. How's that sound to everyone? Sounds good? Good. So let's do a stateful widget, and we'll call it rolling. Oh, I'm bringing this up on the screen, sorry. Rolling number digit. And we have our digit display. We will do something like have a officially we could do something like -1 means a period and then handle that way, like full stop. I mean, to be honest, it's probably better to do something like number digit and actually have like Do I want to do this? No. We could have a separate flag and say period is period or something, right? And then that just ignores the digit. That's probably a better way of handling this right now. Our use case is quite small. All right, so bring those in. We can go back to having a text that gets displayed. So in this case, we can say this could be the ASCII value. This is like the character. Oh, there is a characters package with runes, but we don't need that.
No, why get it characters correct? No, we don't need to get them correct.
Yeah.
No.
Let's treat this as the character. If we do this, then I can completely get rid of period. And this is, let's just document this and say ASCII Unicode character value, right? Then down here, string from charcode. Just call it charcode, I guess. Makes more sense. We're not going to put any style coming down. We'll inherit that. So I think if we now have a single state ticket provider thingamabob, an animation controller, did we lose a Brett? Did he have to go? I wasn't paying attention.
Yep. He's busy.
Let's say goodbye.
He's in private chat. He probably finished his beer and had to go get another one. I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry, but it may be that he's not drinking, but we don't know that. So,
he's in Australia. Of course, he's drinking.
Yeah.
That's just bad stereotype for you, sure.
Right. We're going to get email now. If they can ever figure out our address, we're going to get email on this.
I know. Quick hide. Right.
Yes.
The Australian government's after us. Right. All right. So we want to whack a transform widget around this. And essentially what we want to do is translate, that is move in the XY dimension, our character on the screen. It always lays out the same, but it paints in a different position. That's what transform does. So based on our, I guess we're going to need to get our font size. So we'll do a default text style. Oops. I hate the way it does that. I need to go look and see if I can turn that stuff off. It's really annoying. Of context. Right. And then style, that should be really default style. Oops. So we want to get so this is about like, yeah, definitely a custom render object for this is just going to be way better, but I don't want to go down that route just now. There's way more optimal ways of doing this with custom render objects, but we'll get it working and then go from there. So we want to get the font size and say, looking at that original design, it's kind of going like, what, half, not even half the font size up.
Isn't it doing a full, like,
it's kind of doing like a rotation. So we could definitely do the same effect. I think, yeah, let's carry on here. Let's carry on.
And then it should have gradient fall off. No. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think just like changing the opacity as it goes. So the problem I've got here is that you're seeing. Maybe let's just see. It's hard to tell because of the animation, but At some on each place, there's 2 digits always visible, or can be visible. The one coming out and the one going in, right? So when you're zooming through, it's not that obvious. But when you've got like, see if I can find one of the high numbers changing here or something. Damn it. Right, so 6, 1.6 going out to 1.7. So the 6 is still partially visible when the 7 comes in. Or here, the 7 comes out. This is the 700 digit, whatever, 1,700, right? So 7 comes into an 8, right? So the 7 was still there when the 8 comes in. So we do actually need to make two
layers.
You have to keep track of the old value of what it probably was previously at this position versus the new value, and rotate both of them in. Yes, there is kind of like a blur overlay. It's directional blur, and it's not something that I don't believe the framework has an axis blur out. It's a Gaussian blur framework has, and we can do that with shaders. But also equally, what you're seeing is a video recording, I think, completely of, it may just be an animation done by a designer, or even if it was done in Swift, I don't know if this is kind of I don't know. I'm not even going to go there, but I think we can achieve similar effects without even having to blur. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So we're going to need the font size. I'm going to park this here and come back to the reasons why we need that and how to animate each one. Now we've got a rolling digit, and that digit is displayed. Let's take our rolling number display, and what we want to do is lift up our text into here, and instead of a custom paint, we go for a row, and inside that row we want for char code in text dot character units, right? Characters. Oh, see, they do have characters now. Why do I have to fit in that?
Wide gamut's now the default.
Right, you looking for this thing? And don't do that before I get there. Come back to what we're doing here, and we can look at that in a minute. Come on.
Yeah, but I just got the email from Kevin. So it's like, okay, now it's official. Now Kevin sent me the mail. It's time to go look.
Right, come back to the fray, and then we'll go look at it in a second.
The release czar has said it is official. There is a release.
Right. Okay. So we've output a digit for each one, left to right. That's fine. We can then also main axis alignment. Main axis size min. So that's good. And then that will sit in the center. What is the default stretch? No, center and center, isn't it? Let's have a quick look. Start and center. I forget. Main axis start. We probably want end, right? For the main axis, so it sits to the right. I don't think it makes that much difference. Yeah, need to think about this a bit more. This isn't gonna. Need to think about this a bit more. There's going to be some. There's going to be a need to persist this in a different way, but that anyway, this will get to the main place, and then we want to wrap this. Oops. In a default text style, and merge, and we want to merge that with the style that we've been given. So this is going to pass a new default text style down, so all the digits use that default text style. So we don't have to do this kind of painty thing. We don't need the size anymore because now that's coming from the widget level. So this should be better. And Painter, we've learned a little bit about Painter, but it looks like we're probably not going to need that. So let's get that out of the way. We'll definitely do custom painting eventually, but it'll be done more at the custom painter level, like we can actually get rid of a bunch of this code. All right. So here's our row. And it still works. So that's nice. So the problem we're getting now is that this is what I thought was going to happen, right? So if I go down to smaller numbers, it's centering, which is fine, right? But if we want this effect you see here, it has to be right aligned, right? So we could right align this widget and that would be fine. However, there's actually a secondary problem here, and that is if you go between, let's say, 2000, and like a really small number, I think he shows it in here, the digits like disappear or come out of nowhere, right? Now, for us to have that effect, we actually need to transition to a space, essentially a blank character on the screen. So this rolling number digits only works given the that we persist the number of maximum number of characters previously displayed, so that we can actually transition correctly, and that is persisted. So yeah, I think because if we do that, then we can actually size it based on that maximum, so it doesn't jump around. Let's right align it for the minute, and we understand the problem exists, and then kind of go from there. So let's right align. This is main axis, so cross axis. Let's right align this to the end, and then give it some padding to lift it out from the edges for our demonstration. Symmetric. 64. There we go. Okay, so we can actually bump up a little bit, I guess, for so I can sense it a bit. All right. So now we have that. Let's make it transition each of the characters now that they've each got their own scroll control and everything else. So first of all, we have a previous character code and we have a new character code. Now we do get to know about the two differences when we do a did update widget. So when we get told that our content of our widget's changed, we can go, how did it change? In what way, right? So we can say if our char code is different from the old widget char code, right? Then our digit changed. Depending on how our digit changed, we can choose to do a different animation. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then, based on that, we can then choose to perform a translation and move the digit up or down by whatever amount. And then, if we tweak our transform properly, we can get this kind of parallaxing effect going on. We can also scale and translate. All right, so we'll probably want we'll do let's do change it from font size to translation delta. This is just the amount we want to translate by. That'd be positive or negative depending. And we have our animation controller. We need. Okay, here's the next thing. Okay, we have. I had to think about this actually. So we might be needing to do what's called unbounded controllers. So we don't actually. Yeah, I need to think. Okay, so let me explain the problem. So if we put duration, we have to put duration on a controller. Each digit rotating is not a fixed duration because it can continue from where it left off. But I think if we interrupt it and manage it correctly, maybe it's not a problem. But there is definitely an amount of time it needs to take to actually achieve that effect. It's just difficult to see that in the example. I mean, that's a really, sorry, I'm just going frame by frame here, but there's definitely a delay involved. One changes, the next one changes, the next one changes, like a rollover delay here. Yeah, all right. So I guess there's another bit of information we're missing here, which is we need to know position. That is what position this character is in the string. That can essentially tell us how to apply the effect. Position in underlying number. Right, so if we're going to do that, then we kind of get down to this point where we go, okay, let's grab the code units, which is that an iterable or a list? It's a list, that's good. And we say we want to do an indexed one, so we have the index, and char code, passing over positions as index. However, we probably want we were transitioning from left to right. Maybe that'll work. Let's leave it with that and see how that behaves. And we may what we may want to do is invert this. So we say something like char code.length minus index, right? So it transitions from right to left instead of left to right or whatever. All right. So back down to our char code here. So now we have a controller. We know it's going to have a duration of a certain value. Let's make that kind of ridiculously large per digit. I don't know. That might be too large, quarter second, because remember we've got multiple digits. That means it takes a full second to transition 4 digits, right? If they were incrementally offset, depends on how much we offset them. Yeah, and then lower bound, upper bound, that's fine. We shouldn't need anything else. The initial value. So we'll start on 0. So I need to think about this. There's sorry, I'm just thinking about there might be a different way of approaching this with simulations. Maybe that's going out there too far right now. Let's carry on with this and see how far we get.
I'm going to reload my screen here, so I might be gone for a second.
No worries. Okay, so if the char code is different, I guess we need to know what. I feel like if the overall number is larger, it's going up, and if the overall number was smaller, it's going down. So I think the problem, working back around on, direction is probably not denoted by character value, but more of an external source. So maybe this is, we can maybe just take advantage of scroll direction being a nice enum.
So we do have a relevant question here about, can you explain more about did update widget? Why does the widget receive new parameters but not rebuild?
It does rebuild. Yeah, I'll explain that in just a second. Let me get the overall direction in here, and then we can. So this needs to be stateful now, which we know we needed anyway. And what we want is to say something like previous value, or I guess maybe we have direction, and then direction defaults to a certain value, like I don't know. Oh, there's one that says up and down, isn't there? Growth direction.
Yeah.
Axis direction.
Axis direction is all 4 compass points.
Up, down, right, forward, reverse. I think we'll just Kev's going forward or reverse. Yeah, that's fine. And then what we want to do in here, did update widget. Same thing. In here, we want to let's say if the old widget value, the new widget value is different from the old widget's value. We want to set that direction based on the difference. So we say if direction equals widget value is less than, so the new one is less than the old widget value, then we're going in one direction and then we're going in the other direction, right? We can flip these, flip and flop these. Hope that makes sense to everyone. So now we've got global direction flag. We can pass that over. So all the digits know if the value went up, higher, or lower, basically. We could enum this with something else. Maybe that would be better. Axis direction was growth direction. Forward, reverse. None of these seem to really like. Probably actually make our own enum, maybe rolling number direction is probably better. Up, down, I don't know. Forward, reverse. Let's do that. Up. All right, so we're getting there. So okay, so we get our character code, and we know we need to animate up or down. We're going to want to capture the old value so that we can render it twice. So in old digit value, old digit, and we want that nullable. It's an integer. If this was an enum, then we could have like a sentinel value, right? But maybe old char code. If it's not, we don't start with one, right? The first time, so it's always going to be blank. So either we treat 0 as I think 0 actually is an invalid Unicode value, if I remember rightly. I'm not sure. I think null is probably a better. Oh, we lost a Randall. It's probably a better option here. So, okay, so down here, what's going on, Randall? You all right?
Yes, I'm usually getting stuck. My StreamYard scroll is getting stuck.
Oh.
So my YouTube chat's not coming into StreamYard, and then I can't post a question to you from there because I don't see it yet. Weird. All right.
Well, we can work it out. Right. What's people saying here? Is there a way to detail the 3D object in Flutter, for example, car object in 3D steering play? Yes. Go look at I've done many talks on the topic of 3D. I've done many repos and utilities and everything and talks on here. Go look at my Twitter. There's links on there to lots of 3D stuff. Yes. Right. Next. Is it more like the chart is on like the chart on some sort of cube? What about the z-axis? You may need to stack for the numbers fading out and the ones fading in. Yeah, exactly what I was just thinking. Perfect. All right, cool. Yeah. So, yeah, so we need to have 2 digits now, right? Displayed at the same time. A stack is the obvious thing. Now, again, you can just already see that there's a lot going on here to display one number on the screen. So we can definitely optimize this later on. But let's get the theory and practice working, and then the effect, and then we can optimize our display routine. So here, if we've got an old digit does not equal null, then we want to display that. And then we always want to display the new one, and the old digit will be what we put in here. I guess we probably want to work out what this offset value is based on the old one. So for the minute, let's say it's negative translation delta, and just stick it above, right? Get rid of that, and just to validate that out, the notion of how these move and change is correct, and then we can go into animating it in more detail. So in here, this means that we now set old char code to equal old widget dot char code, right? We store that, cache it. What else do we need to do? I guess
we are coming up on the end of the 3rd hour. I hope I don't need to remind you of that.
We're gonna maybe have to continue this another time. Maybe I'll do another live stream.
Yeah, because you want to spend a few minutes covering the new updates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let me just get this somewhat working the way that we want. I think that's the thing here, right? So basically, we were saying about the direction, right? So widget.direction, if it's equal to our, if it's going up, then we'll go forwards, else, reverse. Now, here's the trick. We always go forward from 0. So we're always going from 0 to 1. And then we alter the animation that we're actually drawing based on the direction. So if that kind of makes sense. So we can now either make, we could store 2 tweens or 2 values that go into the 2 different directions. Let's do forward and reverse for now, and then we can come back to this, because I feel like otherwise we're going to be here a lot longer. Let's just see what we get. All right. So I guess let's restart and see what happens. Click, 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 click. Well, that's an interesting effect. I don't quite know what's going on with that full stop.
How does it end up with a digit?
I don't see how that could end up with that value. This is interesting, right? This is what we're here for.
You don't normally see that kind of behavior in a major appliance.
Right. Let's go slow. What the hell?
Whoa! You broke it. You broke the internet. Wow. So apparently there's something wrong with this picture somehow.
I know, right? Let me think about this for a second.
This is the most comical result I've ever seen you produce.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much. Your enthusiasm for my has helped me so much with my confidence.
I am literally laughing out loud. You can hear that I'm laughing out loud. Yes.
It's interesting that we see this effect, right?
Yeah.
And it's how they're spaced, right? Versus what happens when I... Okay, wait, what?
That worked?
That worked. Hang on, restart. No, because look, I'm going from 1,200 whatever to 1,600. So why? Oh, because the one stayed the same.
Right.
That's what it is. Okay, so this each time, it was looking like there was a bug when there wasn't. Okay, let's try this now. Click, click, click.
Oh.
Right. So the question is, what the fuck happened there?
Maybe it stayed at 3 or 6, so it didn't put the 6
you
up there.
always have. Like, I could drag this through, and at the bottom number, you're always going to have 2 decimal digits, right? So the period should always stay the same. Doesn't matter how small this number goes. The period should never move around.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
And now I've done that. Look, at some point, look like that.
I'm thinking it's that you're not copying the digits to the upper row if they're the same. It should copy it if it's the same.
Now. It does now. I just made that change.
Well, it's not
so if you get
caught up with widget, you. That
I think I don't know what the. I don't know what's going on.
We stumped the Simon. We stumped the Simon.
I blame being tired and hungry.
He is at wit's end. This is rare for Simon.
Wit's end. Let's have a look at this under. Let's see what's going on in this view.
Okay. Now it'll work. Oh, look. Oh, what? That doesn't even make sense. Why is there a gap?
It does. It does make. Does it? Is it possible that we are actually getting a null value, right? So the first time around, the widget gets removed and a new widget gets added. And because we're not keying the widgets on their index, they're being evaluated. No. I mean, let's set an initial value here, right? And see what we get. Right, so. No, so at some point, look, we're getting. What is happening there?
It got shorter and everything got moved over by one. Maybe that's part of it.
It doesn't work that way.
No, apparently it does.
It's the problem I was talking about up here where I think I know what's going on. I know what's going on. Okay. So the number of digits changed. But this is not done in reverse. Hang on. I know what we've got. Watch this question mark. Vertical direction. Yeah, vertical direction down. You're gonna look at this and be like, "What?" I think this is gonna solve it. Hang on. Up. Sorry, up. Wait for it. Restart. You're not doing what I want you to do. Wait, what? Why is that not working? Oh, because it uses text direction and not row. Sorry, ignore me. I don't know. It really annoys me that. All right. Right to left. Decoration, direction. That's what I want. And then we then do. This may seem like, backwards. No pun.
It does seem backwards.
I want to revert. Come on. Isn't there like a dot reverse or something?
No.
Or is that in the collection package?
Yeah, there's a list. The list reversed is in the collection package.
Hang on. There we go. No, it's because it was a. Okay.
Oh.
Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Hey, I solved it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, you did. You did. Look at that. It even works when you transition from 1,000 to 900 too.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So we cross.
Do I really want to explain why that works?
It's probably like how you make a list always be at the end of the list when you scroll. Probably something like that.
I mean, is that kind of thing? Yes. I'm basically
you're reversing stuff, and it just
we're placing the widgets in reverse so that they're stacked from one side to the other. So that means the order in which they're reused is right to left. So
yeah.
But what's happening before is reusing left to right, which meant that when the digits went from hundreds to thousands, the reuse skipped a digit. And that's kind of what the underlying problem was, right? But now we reuse from right to left, then they stay in the ordering in sequence, which means you never get that problem appearing, basically.
Yeah. So it is similar to the reverse scrolling thing, yes.
Sorry?
Cool. It is similar to the reverse scrolling trick, yes.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And if we flip this around, we don't even have to make a list. Yeah, so that should work, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Text.reverse.index. Anyway, so because we reverse the text, that it's basically rendered in the order going from right to left in terms of the order of the widgets, which means they're reused in that order. And because of right to left, they're flipped on the screen when they're displayed, right? So we're kind of getting the benefit of both. You can do the same thing, by the way, with a column. You use that vertical direction, up or down, and it means that the order of the widgets is one way, but the rendering order is the opposite way. Anyway, for people that want to know. Right. Anyway, so back to where we were briefly. So we always want to keep old value? I mean,
the top of the 4th hour has begun.
We'll get there. Hang on.
I know. Just thinking for the people at home. Just being a proxy for the people at home.
Let's rebuild this. Let's rebuild this on the controller changing. And to see what funky animation that we can make briefly, which will not be correct at this moment in time. I warn everyone, because we don't have enough time to really continue. I may do another live stream later on in the week. We'll see. But I kind of want to get this finished. But yeah. All right. So we want to take our controller value, using that as our evaluation point for our translation. And we want the inverse of that one, something like this. We'll find out. All right. Let's see what happens.
You've gotten stranger now.
This is interesting. Look at this. It's like a cool effect.
That's like a calliope.
Here is that actually this is not necessarily correct, right? But the presentation that we have right now is not correct, right? So if we were to, it's kind of interesting. I'm expecting. It's because when this does not, the value of this doesn't flip around in reverse. So the actual direction changes the forward value and reverse value. So if we had this as like old value, new value is 1.0 minus old value, and then based on this based on the direction, we want old value or new value.
So just to let you know, I've got a hard out at another hour and 45 minutes, so just in case.
Is going up. Right. You're not going down. Damn it.
Really?
Have I got this? They're supposed to be the same way? All right, let's just. I mean,
maybe you could get them on your second screen. I think it would be better.
That's an interesting effect, isn't it?
It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I don't think it's close to what you wanted, but it's kind of cool.
It is actually kind of close, believe it or not. But it's yeah.
See, if only the stock market was reported every day with numbers that bounced around like that, I think I'd actually watch.
You can just imagine that, like
yeah. It's shiny objects.
Right.
Shiny objects around.
Like it's just this has got taken way too long. We've spent too long on questions, so we will do the continue this though because I do want to actually get this done. So next week we'll
add the
maybe later on
value line and stuff too.
When it comes to the article, the Medium article, did the official announcement land on the blogs?
Yeah. So the two links just a little bit earlier that I put in there
in the chat.
Let's see. It's under my name, not under the central one. Yeah. How far back was it here?
Can you
medium.com. Yeah. Here's the where can I put that? I can put that over here.
I can just go to the Medium blog and find it on their page. I'll do.
Here's the 3.13 in our private chat.
They've not. I need to. If you said Kevin told you, right? Can you let Kevin know? Did he email you?
He put it on announcements.
All right. Well, maybe just reply and say that 3.10 is still the featured article.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'll poke him wherever I can find that. Yeah.
All right. Let me share the
here's your the two links are in the two links in our private chat now.
Do you want to share the blog post or should I? Have you already started?
You should share it. You should share it. I don't really have any insight yet.
All right. Let's share what's new in Dart.
You're going to start with Dart, not Flutter? Oh, that's Flutter then. It's the Flutter one. Yep.
Get some use to the screen. Right. 3.13. What's new in 3.13? 2D scrolling. It's bigger.
Oh, nice.
Material 3 updates and more. So, we were privy to some 2D scrolling information recently. That's been pretty helpful.
It looks good.
There's a new API for that, which makes best advantage of the box model, so you don't have to deal with heavy slivers, but we'll see. All right. Some cool numbers there. 55 community members, authoring their first commit to Flutter in this release. That's cool. That's definitely cool.
We've roped in. Join us. Yeah, exactly. We are one.
Join us.
Right.
Yes. Keep reading to learn about more engine. We've seen several improvements in Pella, new graphics renderer to the engine.
Improvement.
iOS foldable. Okay, cool.
Ooh.
iOS performance improvements. Thanks to the high quality feedback from Flutter users in this release, we've continued to improve the performance of Impeller on iOS. As a result of many different optimizations, the Impeller renderer on iOS not only now has lower latency, but completely eliminating shader compilation. Completely eliminating
shader compilation. That's incredible.
But on some benchmarks, also having a higher average throughput. That's nice. In particular, on our Flutter Gallery transitions performance benchmark, average frame rate restoration time is now around half of what it was with Skier. Wow. Wow. That's an achievement.
Just when you thought you couldn't get any better.
Improvements to the average restoration time in Flutter Gallery, transition performance benchmarks on the iPhone 11, the time period is covered roughly. Yes, this is what's pictured above. Okay, cool. Yeah. This progress was thanks to the optimization, including dirty region management, partial repaint. That's like just repaint part of the screen and not the entire thing. Implement concurrent rendering, parsing encoding. Okay, that's cool. Made numerous improvements to text rendering. As we said earlier on in this exact stream, text rendering is difficult and hard, so improvements to that it's always going to improve overall performance. Added a fast path for convex shapes to avoid expensive tessellation calls. Oh, that's helpful.
Ooh.
for those that don't know, the convex and concave polygons have different problem sets attached to them when you want to render them. Yeah, convex is a lot simpler than concave, right? Because you can't have crossing over edges, basically, where concave you can. So anyway, there's a mathematical thing about it. You can go read up about it. Deep problems, right? Starting to use compute shaders for a few operations. Okay, cool. More eager culling of outer bounds draw operations even better there. Yeah. All right, fidelity improvements in 3.10. We announced that wide gamut colors were available under a flag when using Impeller. After hearing and addressing feedback from users, wide gamut colors are now the default on iOS when using Impeller. Nice. Right, this is what I want to hear about: the progress of Impeller on Android. Right, we continue to make progress on the Vulkan backend for Impeller. However, it hasn't yet reached the level of quality where official preview period would be useful. Oh, sad face. All right, soon, TM. We want to ensure that our users' first experience with Impeller on Android is high quality, and we're not quite there yet. We hope to enter a preview period for Impeller on Android in stable release later this year. Yes, that's great news. Even though Impeller on Android isn't quite ready for preview yet, the OpenGL and Vulkan backends have benefited from many of the backend agnostic optimizations that we've made with Impeller's HAL during the past year. So basically, they're saying that the way that they've made Impeller itself and the whole abstraction layer means that the improvements that they've been making for iOS and doing iOS stuff will also benefit OpenGL and Vulkan. They don't have to rewrite everything from scratch. In particular, the average frame restoration times for Android have also improved significantly on Flutter Gallery transition performance backend performance benchmarks. Further improvements are in progress. So the preview on Android can be high quality. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Once again, the progress was greatly accelerated by contributions from the community, in particular GitHub user Cold Pale Light, who authored several much appreciated Impeller-related patches, improving the fidelity and performance, including adding support for conical gradients. Nice. Please continue to follow along our progress in Impeller using the Impeller project dashboard on GitHub. We appreciate all the feedback and encouragement users to continue finding fidelity and performance issues in the issue tracker. Yep. Okay.
Mac OS.
Sorry?
Yeah, just saying Mac OS. Cool.
Actually, do you want to read this bit? And I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. So it says that Impeller is rewritten is of course on by default for iOS, but now it's also in preview on macOS. Okay, you can test Impeller and enable it in your app by following the guidance on the Impeller page. That's good. Let's see, I'm trying to summarize while I'm reading it. Boy, if only I was a large language model that could just absorb all this and give you the summary sentences for it. Or I was using one of those to summarize this for you. Looks like, let's see, baseline metrics, blah, blah, blah. Notice any issues, blah, blah, blah. And then Wondrous from the Mac App Store. Oh, that'll be fun. Oh, I can do that. That'll be cool. And I can actually share it. Let's see here. How do I get to the Mac App Store? Mac App Store. There we go. And you guys can't see this, but I'm typing in Wondrous just to see if it's there. Wondrous search. And there it is. Oh, download from the cloud. Okay. I guess I've already purchased it previously. And we'll be able to see it actually on my desktop.
Sorry about that. Second. What did I miss?
Yeah. I was going to show Wondrous on the Mac OS desktop because I'm downloading.
Oh, is that what they managed to make it work? Okay.
Yeah. So it's down. Oh, there it is. It's open. Okay, I can share my screen with.
Oh yeah, please.
Share this window.
Okay.
Let's see here. So how do I share that over to here? I go here. I go present. I go share screen, but it will ask me which window. I hope yes, because I want to show my old window. There we go. Share. All right. Are you seeing that now?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty. That's pretty. All right. Oh, yeah. This looks pretty cool. Nice. Oh.
It's a shame. Is it all smooth on your side? For us, it's not smooth because I think because of the screen share.
It's incredibly smooth. It is like cutting butter with a hot knife.
I think we should take. Yeah, I don't know. If there's any point like seeing that on screen because honestly, we're talking about like frame skip and other things there, right?
All right,
but to know that it's really smooth is the main thing, right? All right,
right, yeah. That's
so
good.
They've improved the performance.
I'm all the way to the bottom of the screen and stalling. So go ahead and keep going beyond. There it is.
There it is.
as a GIF.
So yeah, and again, like, even the GIF doesn't do it justice. You have to really see these things in person. All right, new engine API, improved foldable support, better support for foldable devices. New API, Flutter View display returns a display object. Ooh, what is a display object? We'll have to come back to this.
Is it like a window?
Must be like a window. Reports the physical size and the device pixel ratio and the refresh rate of the display. Check out the set preferred orientations, for example, using the new API. Oh, so I guess like now, you need to set it on your display, right? At your current display. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Framework. Material. We've made a number of improvements to the material framework. 1, offer more platform adaptability. 2, allow more customization. 3, add new capabilities. Fair enough. Character recognition in text field. When using text field on iOS, the user will automatically see an option to use the device camera to recognize characters and insert them into the field.
Whoa, that'll be fun.
Maybe that's just me, but I'm not sure I get that. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay,
just keep scrolling.
I missed that. so you tap it, and then that's cool.
Wow.
I guess it's a picture of iOS. I didn't know that.
I haven't used it before. I don't know that it's.
There's very limited use cases I can think of, but if it works.
It is kind of.
We're not going to talk about the contributions from Lucky's MG reviewer, and the features 1,000-line and 70 commit effort that bridged engine and framework. Thank you.
Wow.
Platform adaptive dialogue in an adaptive constructor has been added to alert dialogue. Finally.
Oh yeah.
Along with the adaptive functions, show adaptive dialogue to display either interior or Cupertino dialogue depending on the current platform. Now using alert dialogue.adaptive uses Cupertino alert dialogue widget for iOS. I have wanted this for many years, and having packages do it myself, it's like nice to have it in the framework. To be honest, though, here's the thing: I talk about it like that, but I could have easily contributed to that, right? But it's finding. Sometimes it's about finding the time. All right.
Well, and contributing is more than just having code that runs. It also means having the docs and having the tests and everything. Yeah. So it's a lot of work to get to the bar of us contributing to the Dart project directly. So it does take a bit of work. Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Cupertino, look at that.
Oh, there we go.
Let's see, another.
Add a month and year to Cupertino date picker.
Oh,
that's helpful.
That's nice.
Cupertino iOS styled radio. Use the checkmark style property for Cupertino radio. Okay, I guess it was used like a circle before. Now it uses a check. I guess. Okay.
It probably still uses the old one unless you ask for this.
Sorry, say again.
Probably it's just like it's probably matching iOS native stuff. I'm guessing.
You can now use the error property of input decorator as opposed to a string. Hang on a minute. You can now use the error property of input decoration as opposed to.
Oh, not just a string. You can put a whole widget out there.
You can put a widget in there rather than a text string.
Oh, that's awesome.
I guess that's why I'm sorry. That's not very clear what they say as opposed to a string. So I'm just assuming they mean that you can now put any widget in there to show an error.
I can put a clacks and beeping and flashing when the error happens. Nice.
You can now add tooltips to button segments. That's helpful.
Yeah.
You can now customize the gap and expansion panel list using the material gap size property. Yeah, okay. You can now customize the track outline width on a switch. Okay. You can customize the padding and tile padding property on navigation drawer.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose how to align tabs and the alignment property of tab bar. That's actually quite handy. Believe it or not, that's problematic if you want to do it any other way.
All sorts of goodies.
Material state colors for chips. Oh, very nice. So you can actually change.
Oh, great. Now that goes through that complex algorithm of 8 different bits being combined through 8 different ways you specify colors. Oh, yeah.
But they provide you the things for simplifying it, right? But at least you can have, the problem here was always one of, do you have like 8 different parameters for different colors, like selected color, unselected color, you know what I mean? Like all the different states.
I know.
Or you provide one property that will return the right color based on state, which is definitely a better approach. Because there's not
you can have a hovered
color for everything, right?
You can have a hovered disabled pressed color for your chip. Yes.
Elevated chips.
Oh, good, because chips were never very tall enough.
No, but I mean, like give them like I don't know. I'm not sure. On submitted nice. Onto it, different actions to be initiated when the user finished typing text in the entry box and presses done on the keyboard. Okay, I never really used the search bar widget, to be honest. I don't think I've ever used it. Base tap and drag gesture recognizer. Base class has been added to the family of classes which include support for tap and pan. Tap horizontal. So I guess this was done to support 2D scrolling, probably. These classes have already been implemented in native text field. Oh, wait a minute. Implement native text fields. However, they can also be great use in other. I mean, does that mean tap and drag on a text field will move the cursor? Does it anyway, though, doesn't it? I don't know. Sure. All right, moving on. App lifecycle changes. Oh, okay, this is interesting. App lifecycle listener class was added for listening to changes in the application lifecycle and responding to requests to exit the app.
Oh, it's like when it has to do the saving stuff.
Different type of listener then, because you do have the app lifecycle listener, but that's part of. I was really curious. That's part of what do you call it? What's the widgets binding observer? Right, but is this like a separate? This is a separate widget. It's a widget. Okay, hang on. We'll come back to that in a minute. I'm putting some things to the side so we can come back to them. But this is a widget, and it allows you to monitor the life cycle of the application, and for widgets to be able to respond to it, which is interesting.
Well, it looks it's a class, not a widget, but okay.
Yeah. No, I'm seeing it as a widget.
Is it?
Am I wrong? Hang on.
It's a
widget
class.
package. Yeah, it's a widget.
Oh.
It does bug me that because listener doesn't say widget to me, right? And they say, what was that widget that's called listenable or something like that? Listener. There's literally a widget called listener for listening to the mouse and touch events. And it's like, it's just too abstract. Anyway, scrolling. Two-dimensional scrolling.
Yay, 2D scrolling.
This release also contains a foundation for building. So I'll zoom in a bit.
Finally, spreadsheets.
For building widgets in scrolling 2-dimensional, which means a bunch of new classes have been built to include child vicinity, a representation of an index in 1-dimensional scroll view, representing the relative position of a child in 2 dimensions, 2-dimensional child delegate, similar to sliver, 2-dimensional child builder, list delegate, 2-dimensional scroll view, 2-dimensional scrollable, 2-dimensional viewport, 2-dimensional render 2-dimensional. So basically, 2-dimensional versions of the similar things that we have for 1-dimensional. I do like this. I always find this interesting. This is the reason why it's written as 2-dimensional, like this instead of 2D, is because you can't start a symbol with a number, because otherwise the parser in the languages thinks it's a number followed by a symbol. So you always have to spell it out. Essentially, you could put T 2D, but then it doesn't really make much sense. So a lot of people end up making their widgets also say something like scroll view and then 2D at the end, because again the number's in the middle rather than in the beginning. But this works. It's the same on everything, so that's the main thing.
I like it.
Right, so scrolling diagonal scroll behavior. Okay, come back to that. For new interaction types and define 2-dimensional scroll. So I think there's let's go have a look. We'll come back to that, I guess. So it seems like you've got that same as scrollable and viewport. You kind of got the two, right? Anyway. We've conducted a user study in order to keep development of this foundation for developers to be able to build whatever they want they can imagine, blah, 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 blah. Check out the examples for lazy loading two-dimensional grid in Dartpad in 200 lines of code. For sure, we shall look at that. I'll come back to that in a minute. The Flutter team is already building two-dimensional scrolling widgets on top of the framework, coming soon in the two-dimensional scrollables package.
Ooh.
Ah.
Waiting for the Wells Fargo wagon to coming down the street on that one.
Right.
Cool.
Coming back. New slivers. Yes. Thank you.
Slivers.
These two slivers are ones that I've needed recently in the Wow shopping app and ones that I've wanted forever. And again, I've only got myself to blame, right? But new set of slivers composing unique scrolling effects. So main axis group, cross axis group, both support arranging multiple slivers together. Basically, this is your row and your column of the box world, but in slivers. So if you ever want to put slivers and have them recycling, you had to use a sliver list, but sliver list only can host box model. It can't host more slivers. So you could put recycling stuff inside of recycling stuff. It just didn't work. And the reason why it's called main axis and cross axis is that the naming of scrolling in slivers, because you can change it from horizontal to vertical. So if you went from a horizontal scrolling list, your main axis to horizontal, so you can't call them row and column. It wouldn't have their meaning would swap depending on the nature of if the scroll is going horizontally or vertically. But yeah, I'm definitely using these like today. I'm gonna be rebasing some stuff. I'll tell you that. I've been waiting for that for a long time. Anyway, in the main axis, one effect this can create is sticky headers, allowing to pin headers to be pushed out of the view as each group sliver scrolls by. Yes, exactly what I've always wanted. Exactly what I'm doing. I might be refactoring some of my own sticky header packages. Anyway, the cross-axis group allows for slivers to be rearranged side by side in the viewport, and with also new widgets, sliver cross-axis expanded. Oh, so we can do like expanded stuff, like whatchamacallit? Sorry, I just realized there's a massive chat going on. Sorry, guys.
No, it's fine. I'm answering it.
So this must be like I assume that is expanded in the same sense of expanding a row column, and constrained maybe the same as flexible. We'll look at these types in a second. I'll switch the stream. Yeah, I'll come back to them in a second. Capable of determining. Sorry, let's move over there. The cross-axis grouping allows for slivers to be arranged side by side in the viewport, also with new widgets like expanded and constrained, capable of determining the allotment of space for each group slivers in the cross-axis. Okay. Also new, again, we needed this the other day, decorated sliver, basically decorated box, but for slivers. There's so many times when you just want to wrap something in scroll with like put like a border on one side of something, or I don't know, some sort of background behind one sliver, and you had to end up doing custom slivers to do that because there was no like inbuilt thing just to decorate, paint something. And now this allows for that. And this works with the standard decorations. So all the standard decoration patterns that we have right now can now work with slivers. This is brilliant. I'm excited about this because whenever you do slivers, it can always be like difficult.
Yeah.
Chat is temporary. Flutter updates are forever.
Yep.
So see a lot of these new slivers in this new Dartpad example. All right, we'll take a look at that.
Ooh. Is it running?
I'll bring that up in a minute. All right, cool. Look at that. There you go. Watch. Right.
Does it scroll?
Just looking at this, you can already see like the power of what you can kind of do with this. Like, anyway, accessibility. The on-off switch labels accessibility property was added for Cupertino Switch. For displaying the I and 0. Oh, okay. So I guess it didn't show the O and I labels before. So now you can change them or turn them on and off, I guess. That's kind of cool.
Yep.
Focus semantic event has been added. However, it should be used with caution as it might break users' expectation of how A11Y focus works.
Accessibility
focus, yeah. Focus semantic event. Okay. icon button is selected is now available to screen readers. Okay, that's very important. So now it tell you basically in the screen reader this button is selected button. Okay. Platforms. Android supported targets. Wait, hang a minute. With this release, Flutter now supports Android targeting Android 14 API 34. While we're still working on a few new features in Android 14, a predictive back navigation. I have no idea what that is. We have thoroughly tested this release against the new Android SDK and prioritized fixing any related issues you find. Okay, so basically, right now, if you find any problems running on targeting 34 and running on Android 14, push the issues right now, get them in the repo, and the team will jump on those immediately. iOS. Well, okay, we need to. This is like way too much. Reduce rotation distortion on iOS. When the iOS screen rotates, Flutter apps will previously experience some distortion that look different from the iOS native application. We've made some modifications to remove the distortion. Okay.
I've noticed that. Yeah.
So you get that because it's like a texture, so it gets warped and stretched. But I guess if you do it correctly.
Yeah, I think it was that it was sort of like squishing in and out to kind of align with the new thing.
I'm going to move past that because it's too much. Right.
Yep.
Rename Runner. When iOS is created, run an Xcode project and Xcode workspace in the iOS folder. You can now rename the workspace or project so you don't end up with a list of runners. I know it sounds funny, but this is always complex when you're dealing with like lots of different platforms and naming everything. But it's also something you could stop people changing, so they're changing and they'll break it, and they'll be like, "Why is my iOS build broken?" It's like because it's not called Runner anymore, right? You went ahead and changed the name of it, so now you can change the name without breaking it. It's like great.
I want to call my next project. I want to make it Sandman. It's a Logan's Run back. Sorry.
Yeah. Preparing for iOS 17 and Xcode 15. With the impending release of iOS 17 and 15, users who decide to develop using the toolchain will need to be on Flutter 3.13. Okay, so there's actually support for it now. Like, at least like it will work. In addition to when downloading Xcode 15, make sure you download iOS 17 simulator. Okay, that's very important, right? So if you want to be using Xcode 15, you need to use iOS 17 as a simulator for it to work. All right, what's next? Games. All right, we're nearly there. I mean, there's quite a lot in here, actually.
I know.
Games, Flutter Games update. We launched the Flutter Casual Games Toolkit in 2022 with a game template, tutorials, documentation, community spaces, everything. Jumpstart game development Flutter. Since then, tens of thousands of games have been published using Flutter. Since launch, we've actively engaged and surveyed Flutter game developers to find out how we can improve the game's toolkit. Almost all of them mentioned wanting more resources and sample code to help them better design, develop, and monetize their games.
Yeah, they're all lazy. Come on.
Today, we are releasing a new update for Flutter Games web page with a carousel of video resources for new games to learn about whilst building in Flutter. We have a number of new updates to the toolkit coming in the next few months with additional resources and samples to kickstart your game development journey.
I can see that's useful if you're trying to get kids involved in programming in Flutter in particular. Because if you're programming games, they're a lot more engaged.
I don't know. I remember first starting with the idea of I'm going to make games. I think most developers do, right? Like, I want to make games. I want to do this cool thing I now play. I now can do it myself, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so anyway, the webinar, satisfaction rating, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're actually working on updates, so please stay tuned. If you're already using the Games Toolkit, we'd love to send us ideas for the future improvers. Please email this email address. Brilliant. So there you go. Cool. Tooling. Tooling. Very important tooling. Okay. This is the bit that really helps us as developers, right? Okay, we've made improvements to the performance and usability of DevTools that include adding a new overflow menu on navigation bar that handle cases when the list of tabs can't be displayed at once. Okay, that's helpful. Overflows now. We've added a legend for the class types on the memory tab. Okay.
Nice.
Additionally, we've made scrolling the tree table in the CPU profile faster and smoother. In the debugger, we've made searching in a file or searching for a file up to 5 times faster. To learn more, check out the release notes on the dev tools. So have to check that out.
Eventually.
Breaking changes and deprecations. This is okay. Breaking changes. Material 3 by default the next release. Should have been using it anyway by now. Anyone? So go toggle if you're not, even if you don't download this version. Enable the use Material 3 from false to true, so that you can try it out yourselves and get your apps up to date. Material 3 demo should be helpful available for proving the differences between 2 and 3. Avoid supported platforms. Flutter no longer supports the Android Jelly Bean API levels 16, 17, 18. And good news that most apps should be migrated to this new minimalistic head by default. Yeah, so they can just. For those that don't know, when you create the new Android folder, it now actually specifies Flutter.min SDK version as a default value. Previous to older versions of Flutter, well, some time ago now, probably a year ago now, your minimum version was a manual number in your Gradle file, and you had to change it if you wanted to. So this kind of helps. These are just, like if you go to apilevels.com, these just are no longer even remotely used. So moving up that support means that we can move forward, and with smaller apps, because we'd have to have less support and such. Anyway,
yes.
So better for everyone. Anyway, however, if you're not migrated automatically because you changed file, this is what I just explained. Whoops. Anyway, you can go read that. Flutter plugins won't be migrated by default, so authors should update your min SDK. List of changes and migration guides, and supported Flutter fix stuff. Okay.
Go.
We can go for that in a minute, I guess. Contributions, Flutter repository priorities and triage. Triage updates. Over the past few months, we've adopted a new set of definitions for our priorities, P0 to P3. This brings us more in line with the definitions used by most other open source projects and simplifies the decisions we have to make regarding to how important bugs are. Rather than 7 categories, we now have 4. Hopefully, this will help us communicate more effectively with those that file bugs, and then wonder when things will be fixed. We've also introduced a new triaging scheme for our teams, which we hope will make it harder for issues to fall between the cracks. If you're active in our database, you may see a new bot commenting and removing labels. Cool. This bot also integrates with our Discord, how we must keep on top of what is happening on GitHub. We hope it will make us important, make us more productive in the long run, and bear with us while we get used to the new system, which is fair enough. Finally, conclusion. We've come to the end of this announcement. I want to acknowledge that we would not be where we are today without the efforts of our fantastic community. For a full list of PRs that will be included in this release, please check our notes and changelog section in Flutter 3.13 stable today. Dart 3.1 has also announced the newest updates. All it takes is a Flutter upgrade to you get to from Kevin.
And I bet that Dart 3.1 link is what the other URL was.
And funny enough, I have that all prepared and ready to go somewhere. Hide it. I opened up a bunch of links before I here we go. Hang on. And bingo. Are we loading? Here we go. Dart 3.1. Actually, let's just make sure that is the right link. Dart 3.1. Yeah, it was. Yeah, okay.
Same.
Yep. Okay, Dart 3.1. Retrospective and functional style programming in Dart 3. Pattern matching exhaustive switches come together to enable functional style data models that blend seamlessly with Dart's object-oriented core. Yeah, so you can take this kind of stuff and make this kind of stuff. I guess that's what whatever.
Further use class modifiers. Henderson 3, changelog. Oh, what's that changelog say about the class modifiers?
Okay, hang on. Today we're using 3 stable channel. Handful minor updates introduced. Adjustments to further class modifiers introduced, which you can now read about in the changelog. Mostly though, we've been spending our time on the new roadmap items. Okay, so let's have a look at changelog here. Let me bring that up. Hang on.
I want to know if they fixed the final problem, the implementing final for tests.
Okay, here's 3.1. We can take a look through these changes. Why not? And then we can come back to the article. Async break and change adds interface modifier to purely abstract classes.
That's expected.
Yeah. Convert. Change return types of encode from list in to you. Finally. Sorry. Sorry. When you get back like a byte array, you've got this abstract like list of in, and it's actually a byte array, and you end up having to cast it all the time. So, yeah. Anyway.
Nice.
URI base native platform now respects IO overrides overriding the current directory. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Same site cookie. Same site to cookie. So this is break and change file system is sealed. Sure, kind of expected. Deprecation when platform is shared. Line terminator, which is supposed to the character of the operating system. Hang on a minute. Added. Wasn't there already one of these? Oh, no, I'm thinking
you would think there would be.
No. It was path separators. Platform.path separator for like a backslash for Windows / for others. And here you got line terminator, which gives you the correct /r/rn/n, depending.
Yep.
The isolate. Okay, you got synchronous version of Resolve. Nice. And package config is synchronous as well. These are quite important if you want to load resources from your lib directory. JS interrupt. Removed. No. Inline. Sure. JS static interrupt and external extension members can no longer be used as tear-offs. I'm sure that's it, really. 307. So that's like the. Let's go back to the article though and see what the article says.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the thing that said that there were like
I think maybe the modifiers about how they're being used. So they're saying they've introduced using them in a few libraries. The thing is, they haven't changed them.
They didn't fix the final subclassing thing that you need to get.
How do you model data? I'm not going
to skim through this already. This is like FP Dart kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is just like what's the difference between OO and functional, right? So
yeah, I wouldn't.
How pattern matching comes into it.
This is worth reading if you're interested in this stuff.
Definitely
but I don't know that
I think this is worth reading for info. I'm just going to skip through this because functional approach.
ADTs, yes.
Yep. And then here's a comparison of what's above, but now in functional, modeling object
pattern matching. Woohoo. Yep.
I think this is more about just going into more detail around what it means to have all these classes and features now, and maybe because probably wasn't as explained as well, maybe.
Yeah, this is more detail than anything that's come out of Mountain View for a while, so this is nice.
That's interesting. Annotation verifier package. Libraries diagonalize it contains functions, define behaviors for the different annotations. The middle white code. Okay. Okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah, it's all about motivating patterns, which we know.
Okay, here Dart 3's object. And the original author did just that. 16 lines of chained if-else statements were pared down to 7-line switch statement.
Yep.
And here's a case where object pattern matches against blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm not going to go through this. I mean, this is all just like specifically calling out examples and explaining the new.
For anybody that wants detailed motivations of why records and patterns and
why this is important,
this is good stuff already. So definitely check it out.
Checking
the listeners for you all there out.
Go around the complete Dart type. There we added seal class modifier, kind of extended or implemented. This means that these are things that are required to make patterns work essentially. Yeah.
Yep. Seal class.
Sorry, I just refactored part of the SDK entirely in seal file system, so its subtypes can be exhaustively switched over. Brace yourselves. Refactors are hard.
Oh yeah.
Just kidding. That wasn't hard at all. It should be noted though that sealing existing class hierarchy is a break and change. Code targeting older versions won't be able to implement extended class, so always check the dependencies and alert users. Blah 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 blah. Yep. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna I'm not gonna go through some of this stuff right now. I think it's worth going through. This kind of feels to me like it's really what Dart 3 announcement should have contained, right? Like a bit more in depth around patterns and functional programming.
Yeah, this is the stuff we all knew but hadn't written down yet. So it's finally getting caught up by getting written down.
Yeah,
this is
summary.
Nice.
Yeah.
Strong level.
Yeah.
There we go.
And lots of that's really cool. There's a really great FlutterCon talk actually that took place around functional programming that's been called out now, so it's kind of nice.
Sure. Excellent.
Yeah. Cool. That's it.
123 claps and a few more.
Right on. Why not?
Thank you, Maria.
Maria. Yeah, there we go. Maria.
Yep. I don't know.
Wow.
I'm making it up.
So how long?
We're coming up on 4 hours.
Okay, that was a long one.
I think we could probably say goodbye to all the people that have been sticking with us.
Thank you for those that stuck around. Thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and it was great to go through what we had. I guess we'll be seeing you same time next week, maybe before.
I got to get the first food of the day coming up soon.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. All right.
Ciao. Bye. Next week.